Right. Good morning or good evening or whatever part of the day you're from wherever you are. This particular presentation is going to be a little bit different because it is really probably a 3-hour ad for a conference that a gentleman by the name of Wayne is funding and putting on at a place called Bundaberg. Now, what's different about this presentation is that we're asking a lot of original and some non-original people to come together in the spirit of Wirichin. And for those people who haven't heard that comment or that word made, and we've said it often, that means black fella, white fella dreaming. And the original people in Australia have been very keen to push that particular belief in the fact there's a time in the foreseeable future where everyone's going to come together in harmony and work in the right direction. And to an extent, maybe not originally, but what's happened is this particular presentation is indirectly about a ceremony that took place 3.5 years ago at Uluru, which heralded the change of this planet and the ascension of the planet. And this conference that's taking place at Bundaberg is referred to as the Awakening. And that's what it's supposed to create. And what we've done is we've asked quite a few original people, and in fact the majority of speakers are original, and a lot of people probably won't even know these people because they've never heard or seen them before unless they've watched our shows. And we've chosen people together to make something different, which is a coherent story from start to finish. Now, the way this conference works, and let me explain that first, and what we're going to do is throughout our presentation, we're going to bring on different people who are going to talk for about 15 minutes about what they're going to talk about, just like an overview. Now, the conference itself, where there's going to be speakers inside a hall, a rather large hall, which we won't fill up, of course, because it takes 1,000 people. And they'll be talking in an order. And what they'll do is they'll give a story where the next part of the story, the next chapter, is the next speaker. And all of these speakers relate to what the person before said and will relate to the person who follows. Now, we did this way because normally conferences in Australia, and I'm not having a go at anyone that does it because that's how it is, are a combination of different speakers with different events that sometimes relate, sometimes don't, and sometimes have nothing to do with each other. This is not what's going to take place here. We work towards a finish, and we're looking at a very important original mantra of as on top, so below. And we're turning it around, aren't we, Evan? We're starting with the so below and finishing with the as on top. And for those people who might be thinking, what do we mean by as on top? Well, that actually means the mob that lives upstairs in the constellation that are involved directly and indirectly in what happens on this planet. And what we're going to do, and I want to make the point, I know that this gets watched over a week and quite a few thousand people watch it, and the great majority of the people do not live near Bundaberg. In fact, the great majority of the people don't live near Australia. Now, what we're suggesting is the way the conference works, we're going to have speakers inside for the 2 days, and we'll be filming that. We will also have workshops running at the same time, and there'll be markets that take place. And the way it's going to work is that people can come and go as they please. It's a bit like at university where people walk into a lecture, then they go out, they go to a tutorial sometimes for a while, then they go out again, then they go out and have lunch and come back. It's the same here. It's not rigorous. It's very open-ended, and it's giving people a chance to take in different things at different times. So that's the basis of what we're trying to do. Now, what we're going to give today is we're going to ask different people to come on and give a little bit of a feel for what they're talking about. And at the moment, we have one gentleman who's, where is Smacker at the moment, Evans?
Out near Broken Hill.
That's right. He's out near Broken Hill, and he's going to have to get fairly close to the microphone because the sound isn't great from there. And for those people who don't know where Broken Hill is, and probably most of you won't, it's in the middle of it's in the middle of Australia, actually. It's right on the edge of New South Wales. It's out in the desert region, and it's somewhere close to where Smacker's home country is. And what he's going to be talking about is just giving a general overview of what he will speak about on the day. Now we have, I think Anie Trudy Roberts will be popping into the studio in a while. I'm not sure about that. If she can make it, she will be. And then others will be popping in at different times. We're also going to give a little bit of a talk about one part of this. And I just want to sort of set this up before I go across to Smacker. We're going to be doing something that we've done before, but not like this. We're going to do rock ceremony. And what I'm going to do is further on when we do our presentation, we'll talk a little bit about that. But the one thing I want to make very clear at the start, if the rocks that we're giving ceremony with are not like rocks found anywhere else on this planet. And I want to make the point also, they were made with technology that is beyond the grasp of stick, stone and bone. They were made during a time when Atlantis and Lemuria were flourishing. They were made at a time in Australia when Lemuria was Australia and Australia was Lemuria. Now, that particular rock ceremony will not be filmed. Okay, now what will be filmed, and the reason I'm going to talk about that very briefly is for our overseas guests. What will be filmed are all the speakers inside the hall. Now, there will be, I think, about 9 or 10 different presentations. And what we're suggesting for the 90% of people who are not local and can't get to Bundaberg, there is a facility available where you can pay for one day's presentation for $50, which is incredibly cheap because it goes from 9 to 5 o'clock. And you're going to be hearing speakers you've never heard of before speaking about original old way sensibilities, old way beliefs, and the change that's taking place. I strongly recommend of all the presentations we've put on that you think seriously about maybe even purchasing that for 50 Australian dollars, ladies and gentlemen. I noticed someone just came from Idaho.
Yeah.
Now, 50 Australian dollars, if you take that to America, turns out to be around about $30. Okay, that's not a lot. Okay, so I really would like you to think seriously about maybe purchasing this. Buy one day, and then if you think it's really good, then buy the second day. And what that does is what we're trying to do with this, and we've had a lot of problems putting this on, haven't we, Evan?
Yeah.
There have been people have been trying to block this for all different ways, sometimes intentionally and sometimes not in very unintentionally. But what has taken place is that's made it difficult. And what we're trying to do is to make this a pattern. If it happens once and we don't make a massive loss out of it, then there's a good chance it'll happen again. So we're asking you people, even if you can't come, to sponsor this by just thinking about putting in, if it's US dollars, it's probably $30 a day. Buy one, and if you like it, get a second one. And I guarantee you will like it. You'll hear information that you've never heard before. So, having said that, what we're going to try and do now is I'm going to step away for a sec, and Smacker's waiting in the middle of Australia, which is basically where he is at the moment. And Evan's going to set him up. I'm going to stand away for a second while you put him on. And then we'll have Smacker on for about 15 minutes. Then we'll come back. And at some stage, we'll do our talk about the rocks. But in the time, over to you, Smacker, and Evan, can you press the right button?
I have done that.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
keep speaking like
Okay,
that,
that's
mate.
good. Yeah, no worries, it's good. Okay, I'm from Western New South Wales, like a small Aboriginal community. I went to Sydney 5 years ago just for a visit, and I'm still there. And what we- it's too long to explain now, but I will explain that at the conference. Why I'm still there and what I'm doing. I see myself as like a messenger and as a guide to people who are learning the truth, especially about all the truth about who we are as a human race, where we come from, and what the government keeps hidden from us. I've been attending and getting invited to many festivals around the Sydney area. This is the first one in Queensland I got invited to. Just doing my story. I travel with my country, not only ceremony bush, but spirit, spirit one as well. So I'll explain not only the animals, but spirit animals that helps me in different ways. So I'm from Morocco, semi-arid desert country. Out here, when we get summer, we're looking at around about 55 degrees H. It's been very special since this started doing the activation of Uluru, and energy has risen a lot higher. I've been coming across a lot of different people in my travels over the last 5 years who come along to my story, and they just amazed about. They felt that change, but I didn't know what it was, and they could feel that energy. A lot of people are coming more aware. Some are staying with it, going along with it. Some are taking it, and then they lose control and they don't come back. But it's up to the individuals when you connect with land and country, you got to do it and be committed. So, and we're explaining a lot about how that is sort of done as well, which is for a lot of people is very different. And we grew up with that and learning that, so it's come to us naturally. But for people who never grew up with it and learning it for first time, um, it can be hard to change your ways, your views, your thoughts, everything, and just trust in that. So I was not only talking about that, with that situation, but also learn helps in different ways. With not only medicine, but ceremony and energy and everything else. Everything we need, everything we want, all comes back to the land. Our ceremonies, our dance, our medicine, our shelter, our food, always let us circle back to the land. So we gotta show that respect back, and you gotta earn that respect. It's not just given to you. So we're learning people about that type of stuff. Uh, and on my travels, I've been guided to different places and different areas where cars have been wiped out, and been learning stories. What a country been speaking to me and telling me different stories, which I will reveal also at the festival. These are very powerful stories, engravings that was done not only that was done by the sky people, but also a lot of prehistoric engravings from thousands of years ago. So it's amazing when you look at the human race and how old we are, but then getting light to what a government about where we come from. It's we, I enjoy going around explaining this to people, opening their eyes, and I can see and feel that more and more people are becoming more aware and becoming more awake. Uh, and I can feel that this government's going to be overthrown. They're not doing the right thing. They've never done the right thing. Uh, because I'm an activist and I speak out against them, I need to be careful where I travel, where I go, because they are my targeted person now. So us type of people are always trying to get set up and do anything to try and get rid of us. So I'm very careful how I do that as well. But the land looks after me, country looks after me. and take where I need to. And that's another thing I just can learn and achieve these stuff by once you make that connection, you can learn about how you can use that in a lot of different ways. It's amazing, it's beautiful, it's energy. And yeah, I don't know how long we got now. Okay, so I'll keep going on. Well, I'm bringing yeah, bush plants, bush medicine, ceremony plant, energy plant, all comes in one, and then one country which I use for spirit, spirit animal that comes with me. So I use spirit of my country to help me on my walks and talks, and I've been helping a lot of other people with this as well. So people are amazed how our natural plants can, like when you get the cold flu, pneumonia, you're there for weeks and weeks with the doctor. We got a plant that can fix you up in one day. They'll be showcasing our country and land looks after us that way, which is hidden from mainstream. And now you can access it or get it and use it. Hay fever, all different types of medical use. So yeah, strange tunes, come and listen or come to the festival. This is a very special one. There's no other festival like this in Australia, and you're going to learn stuff and things that are very powerful, very beautiful, and it's going to awaken your mind in a lot of different ways.
Okay. Actually, Smacker, that's a very good summation. And can I just add something to that? You're going back out the country to get some of that emu bush stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, to bring with me.
Yeah. Tell us about that, mate, what it does to people, because I know because we've used it and it's an amazing medicine. Give
Yeah.
people a bit of a rundown of what that does, mate.
Well, all that put with it works. We use it in ceremony for smoking ceremony, cure negative energy, bringing in good energy. So we use it in smoking ceremony. We also use it in when it's person not out of people's bodies or houses. Uh, also use it in cold flu, pneumonia. When you that stuff picks up in one day, I put with hay fever, eczema, a lot of different skin problems. Uh, fix them all up already, clears all your airways and your throat. They call it emu because when it fruits, it's got a little red berry. And the only animal or bird that eats it berry, the emu, even we can't eat because it's a bit toxic back and sick. But when that emu, he swallowed that berry, he swallowed it full. When he came out the other side, that berry was still full. And it goes through his chewing process through his stomach. So we can pick that berry up then and then we can eat it. And then when that, of course, that emu swallowed that berry and he spreads it around the country for us, when that tree grows and the leaves come out, the leaves are the same shape and length as the tail feathers of the emu.
I
That's why
think,
we call them the emu bush.
yeah, I think when you think about that, mate, because white fellas have got medicine too, and they go into a big factory and they come out through the belly of that factory. And I'm thinking somehow I much prefer your belly than the one that the white fellas use when they put a big factory up and the smoke comes out the bit. They put in all these
Yeah.
chemicals. We can't even pronounce what the names of the chemicals are, but we know how to say the word emu and we know where it's coming out, don't we? All much
Yeah.
simpler. And but what Smacker's really big on, and this is really important, he'll do it in more detail. And yeah, it was a bit tricky today because the sound was a bit,
But we got there.
we got there and you were bouncing around a bit. But the most important part of this is Smacker is a keeper and he was taken on by his elders when he was young, when the other young ones weren't interested, were they? Weren't interested in what was going on, were they, Smacker? But you were, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now that they all been old me, so imagine me they want to land, but they come for a couple of days and they go and they want to come back for another half a year. There's no
Yeah.
way to take. But it's just the way society is structured, where they got them going. it's very hard, especially for us as original people. The way we are persecuted and followed and targeted all the time. Uh, it's that structure that got the system that's keeping us down.
And that's an important part, mate, of what we're trying to talk about. A lot of people think that all Aboriginal people know all of the culture, all of the old ways, all of the bush medicine. That's not the case, is it, mate? It's nearly gone, isn't it?
Well, people got to learn that not all Aboriginal people are the same. Not all Aboriginal people are connected to land or know about land or culture. Other people who've been from Stone Generation grew up with white parents, um, and they still don't know nothing about land or culture or language or stuff. So yeah, people got to realize when you're speaking to us, it's the same like when you're speaking to somebody else. Not everyone going to have the same knowledge. Everyone is different. Everyone is not the same.
Definitely right, mate. And obviously in Smacker's case, he's bouncing all over the place, mate. We might stop for now because
yeah,
I can tell that, mate. We're doing. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we've gone probably about 1,000 kilometres inland from where we are at the moment, mate. We're a fair way off, and the reception gets worse when you get further away. But it gives us a feel for what's going on, and I can tell you, to back up what you've just said, Anie Trudy's on her way. She'll be here soon. And she's had so many original people tell her, don't go to this ceremony. We don't like you talking about this sort of stuff. And it's really important people understand that the culture, not just dying with white fellas, it's dying with black fellas too. And it's really important we bring this back. And a lot of the people fighting against this are not white fellas, are they? No, they're black fellas saying, no, don't talk like this anymore. We don't want to talk about it. A lot
of those people are disconnected and they don't listen properly, and they think that they I've come across a lot with their politics. It's very bad, their politics. That's why I get away from it now. I used to be involved with it a lot around here, but not anymore. I just do my own thing, and then people come look for me when I need advice or guidance.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Okay, mate. Look, thank you for that. That's great. That gives us a bit of a feel for where you're coming from and what you're going to talk about. And I can tell people, I've been out in country. I'm writing an article about this right now. And Smacker is also looking after sites now. And this gives you an idea of how much things have fallen away for Aboriginal people. He's been looking after and the guardian of sites in Sydney, and that's not his land. But they've asked him to look after it because he knows they know he's a culture man. And in Sydney, culture men, culture women, there are not many left now. This is really an issue. So this will be part, and Smacker will be talking about culture, about old way, and he'll be talking about bush tucker stuff. And I can tell you the stuff he's got, I would much prefer to take something, a medicine that was made by the creator, that grew on the land, and in some cases went inside some animal and came out the other side. That sounds a lot more healthy.
Well, you got to keep in mind the best coffee in the world goes through a weasel-like creature in Vietnam, and everyone says that's the best coffee.
Oh, that's right, it does, and comes out the other side, doesn't it?
I talk about that coffee thing with that that animal that does the same thing, the coffee. When I tell my story about the emu berry.
Yeah, same thing, isn't it? No different, no different.
I'll go out there today and bring a big heap, so because I can feel I'm going to get a lot of people buying some off me, especially this time winter time. I'll need it.
So Smacker will be talking about bush tucker and bush droppings when it comes to that, won't you, mate? Okay, mate, thank you for that. I appreciate that, and thank you for being around just to give people a bit of a feel for what you're talking about. And like I said, we've got other people popping in at different times, and we'll keep our eyes open on that. But what we might do right now, Evan, is we might do our presentation. By that time, Anie Trudy will be there.
Yep.
Okay, mate. Thank you for
so
that.
Much, and see you very soon.
We'll see you soon.
And I'll see you on the 17th.
Yep, definitely. See you up at Bundaberg. Okay, mate. Right, Evan, can you get this set up? Right, here we go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to talk about now. Oh, hello. we'll take that off, whatever that was. Okay, I want to talk about the rocks, and I want to talk about what we're going to try and do, because remember, we got to be careful. We didn't go onto this country, and Wayne went to a lot of trouble to set this up. This was not going to happen unless the elders from Bundaberg, as a group, agreed that we could come onto country, right? And on the first day, that night, they're going to do a welcome to country, right? Hang on for a sec. Who's here, Evan?
Anie Trudy's here.
Anie Trudy. Right.
So you might want to
Yeah. Look, Evan, you just explained to him the fact that I've got to talk to Anie Trudy, because what Anie Trudy wants to do before she comes and talks, she wants to spend some time with the rocks. So just give me 1 second to set her up. Evan, would you explain about the fact what Wayne did first to make sure we can come?
Oh, yeah. So Wayne contacted the local mobs up at Bundaberg. So they've all given him the thumbs up. You can actually go to the Facebook group page, and you'll see their letter of approval. So, and then you'll also see on the poster, there's a few logos of the groups and the local groups in Bundaberg that are involved. So it's all very legitimate, and yeah, thumbs up from everybody there. So yeah, all good. So for people going, hey, that's all sorted. Yeah, so Steve's about to come back in. So what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about some of the rocks first, and then Anie Trudy.
Right, Anie Trudy's now spending some time sitting with the rocks. Now, I want to talk about the rocks and explain what makes them different. The rocks we're going to show you, and when I say they're unique and they don't exist anywhere else, I can give you an example of that. The first rock we're going to talk about, which you won't put up yet, Evan, you'll put up soon. One of the people we work with is a professor of a university. I won't say which one because he wants to remain anonymous, because he wants to keep his, he's not talking to us is a death wish for your occupation. No, he will be banned. And he told us this rock was the greatest mystery he'd ever seen in his life, didn't he, Evan?
Yeah. He, I think it was, he did his PhD on, it was an organism that was a rock. It was both.
It was a rock and a vegetable.
Yeah,
but and they can't decide which it is. But he said what he saw is the greatest mystery he's ever seen. He then made contact with the Smithsonian Institute, thinking that was a good thing, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Wayne, yeah, there is a smoking ceremony, I forgot to mention as well.
Oh, yeah.
That starts off
the
whole conference as
well.
Sorry
it does. All right, that's part of it too. We have to do this old way, and we'll be doing it all the way through. Now, that particular rock I'm talking about, they said is unique. There's nothing like it on this planet. Well, that is the same for all of the rocks. Now, the reason being, the rocks that we're going to show you, now I've got to make the point, we don't go on to country to pick up rocks, we'd be dead. We have never gone on to country and picked up a rock anywhere. We don't do that. What actually happens is people buy them on the open market, right? Mainly Ross Mulder's bought most of them, then sends them to us. Or people come and visit us and say, we found this rock 15 years ago. And I say, where? Oh, I can't remember. I was speaking to someone yesterday and said, where'd you find the rock? I just can't remember. What they do is they pick them up and say, look at this rock. What is this? Now, they know what original rocks are supposed to be like because they've seen pictures of it and they've been to school and they've told them, and they know it can't be that. So they pick it up. And a lot of these people collect rocks. Nothing wrong with that.
Some of them actually get drawn to them
and often
are told to pick them up. They'll have a voice in their head telling
We've had stories where people have driven past car parks and been told to go back. And then when they go back, they've been called by the rock and they go and pick it up. Now, the point was the rock called them, and what it was trying to do is to get back, to come back to what it wanted to do. Now, I want to make the point, when we show you these rocks, none of them can be made in stick, stone and bone technology. It's not possible. It isn't possible. It goes way past that. But secondly, we didn't collect any rocks. In fact, we never went on to country until I was given ceremony by Kano gave me permission to go onto country, and everyone in this country that knew about Aboriginal stuff old way knew Kana. And he's the one that checked everything we did. And we made an agreement with the Ram and Mzere. We signed a contract, and I shook my hand, and so did Roz, that all the rocks would go into formation on country and people would do rock ceremony. That has always been what we're trying to do. And on 2 occasions in South Australia on Ram and Mzere country, we had a place to put the rocks, didn't we, Evan?
We did.
Both occasions, the government stepped in and stopped us, and we're trying to do it again.
Yeah, Uncle Donnie. True. They sing him up the rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not the owner of the rocks. My job is to act as a custodian, to look after the rocks, and even to this day, we have weekly meetings with the Ram and Mzere to set up a culture centre for these rocks to be set up. So don't make an issue about the fact that at the moment I'm looking after the rocks, because I don't own them. Nobody owns these rocks. They belong to the country, and they belong to original and non-original people to do ceremony within. Now, we're going to talk about that ceremony in a sec, but before we do that, I just want to make the point that some people tell us to put them back onto country. Well, I can tell you now, see my 2 hands, that would sum up the total of the rocks that we know, whether we know where they belong. Now, about 200 of the rocks are not even with us anymore. They're in country, on Ram and Mzere country, and buried in the ground. And only 2 people know where they are. Why are they buried in the ground? Simply because we're waiting. In the meantime, about 1.5 years ago, the rocks made it clear to me they were sick of waiting, and they wanted to do ceremony with people. And this is how this began. Before that, we never did it, did we?
No.
Sometimes we do it out the back with elders, and we set them up, and we do that on the quiet, but that's as far as it went. They made the issue of doing this, not us. And now what we're going to show you, and I hope Evan's going to put this up in a sec, and we will, I'm going to first show you, before I introduce the rocks, now that I've given you a bit of a feel for what they're about, I'm first of all going to show you an evaluation form. Now, when we did these ceremonies, we had about, I think, 295 people that came, didn't we? We stopped doing it, okay? And we might do one later on this year, but I'm not real keen on doing it because we're starting to do it in different ways. And we gave them each an evaluation form. Now, they weren't to put their name on it, and they were to fill it out on the finish, and they were to fold it and then put it in a box, and we weren't to look at it because we didn't want to be able to associate anyone that did it with their evaluation. It was kept quiet, and that meant people weren't under pressure to write things like, oh, it was wonderful, when it wasn't.
Yeah, didn't know who wrote what.
No, we don't know who wrote what, but what Evan's now going to do is we're going to actually show you an overview of the evaluation, and there it is there. Now, I want you to look down to the totals. Down the bottom there, you'll find 295. That works out the number of people who actually participated in the rock ceremony. Okay. Now, what we've done is we broke it up into three areas. This experience directed towards, was it mind, soul, or body? Well, they're the 3 things you can aim at. Then the type of contact and the type of message. Now, what I want to show you at the finish is the sum total was 295. Now, there were 298 people who participated. 295 wrote down the fact that they had some sort of contact. Okay? Don't worry so much about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just the numbers at the finish are the most important one. The 3 people who didn't have some sort of contact, and what that was between the 5 to 10 minutes sitting inside a circle of rocks, which we're going to offer to each person. During the 2 days we're doing this, we're going to have a sheet of paper. You put your name on it, and you will get somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the number of people who've come, at a certain time to leave the hall, to go to this place, sit inside the rocks, and there'll be a person, either myself, Evan, or Shane and Annette. There are people who will be there all the time, and they will guide you through that. And what all you've got to do is you sit or lay inside the rocks for 5 to 10 minutes. Now, that's on offer to every person who goes there. Now, that goes through the Friday and the Saturday during the day. Now, you might be at a workshop, or you might be in the main hall listening. Well, you keep your eye on the clock, and about 2 minutes before your time to start, you leave. You just walk out. It's cool. It's okay. People will be doing it all day. Then you spend your 10 minutes, then you come back, and then the next person goes out 2 minutes before. So there's a very seamless sort of continuation that takes place. Oh, okay. Now, what I found particularly interesting is that when you looked at the evaluation forms, the one thing it shared was this, that no two were the same. Each person had a different reaction to the rocks. The rocks actually are you're introducing yourself to the rocks, they're introducing themselves to you, and then they look within and find out what it is that you need. Now, we've had people who've done rock ceremony here that have been healed of physical ailments. Some have had massive issues with that, and they've felt themselves walk out of there feeling better. Others have had spiritual experiences. Some have had experiences with their mind, their body, their soul. It varied from person to person. And what we're saying is that each person has that opportunity. And we do this in two ways. Over those first 2 days, everyone spends 10 minutes or 8 minutes, whatever the timing is, sitting with a rock quietly on your own. Then you come out. And then at the finish, we're going to do at night, we're going to do a 2-hour ceremony where you get up and close and personal, and you can hold the rocks. But hold the rocks with one proviso. You must have gloves. I don't care if they're made from leather, wool, satin, cotton, doesn't matter, silk. But you cannot have skin to rock contact with them. That is banned. And the reason it's banned is because if you do, you break protocol. And Uncle Donnie would know this, and I know he's with us at the moment. The rocks and Old Way are all about protocol. You do not have the right to touch the rocks unless they know you and have made a decision and told me that it's okay for them to touch. Now, right now, Anie Trudy is doing ceremony with the rocks. She is one of about 3 people that is allowed to actually touch the rocks. Okay, Evan is about to go through that process. He's only just found that out now.
What?
All right, no, you have to, because I'm going to die soon. And someone has got to look after him after you, and it's you. You're going to start that. Now, they are the people. Shane's another one who'll be up there, and he'll be running most of that ceremony. Now, that nighttime one, we'll be handing the rocks around, and we'll be examining them. And we're going to ask you to try and work out what they're about, what their function is. And some people might discover things that we didn't know. And we're going to spend 2 hours up close and personal with them. And the whole time we're going to be talking, there'll be pictures up about the rocks, and you'll actually have them in your hands. Now, when you get them, you don't keep them for 15 minutes. You keep them for about 20 to 30 seconds. You look at them and pass them on. And that way more can get around. And that will be rock ceremony also. And in the finish, first of all, laying with inside the circle, then secondly, actually getting up close and personal, they will have an impact upon you. And it will be positive. Not one person of the 295 that got a result ever said that what happened to them was unpleasant. They made it clear that everyone got something positive out of the equation. Now, you can go to other presentations, but you won't get that. That's only going to be done here. And the beauty of this is that even when we've taken these to other places, and we did take it to Uluru, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Couldn't take them all. I mean, I've got one rock I'm bringing that weighs 7 kilos. If I put that in my bag, that's about all we could take. No, we couldn't take all of them. We're taking rocks that we've never taken before on ceremony. And later on, I'm going to show you the rock that weighs 7 kilos. But right now, Anie Trudy is doing ceremony, so we're going to have to do that later on. So now that you've been introduced to the rocks, and the fact that we don't know where they come from, and the fact that people gave them to us, we didn't go and get them ourselves. We don't do that. Our job is to receive, not to wander in the bush and take things. I've walked past rocks in the bush and I looked at them and thought, my God, they're brilliant. Picked them up, looked at them for a while, admired them, put them back down exactly where I found them. because that's not the way this works. By the way, we have occasionally got rocks that we knew were not stick, stone and bone technology, and people forced it upon us. And guess what we did with them, Evan? Gave them back, didn't we? We went to Uluru once. We were given a 7-sided, 7-bladed crystal knife, didn't we? A woman's rock. We knew that, and we took it and we gave it to Bob Randall's wife at Uluru in a formal ceremony. I was given another rock that came from Moree, and I knew it wasn't. It was stick, stone and bone. When I went to Moree, I gave it to an elder there. If we're given rocks that we don't believe belong to that model we've got, we give them back. They go back to country, because we don't have anything that is stick, stone and bone, because that belongs on country. These rocks we've got, and we'll put the first one up now, please, Evan. Right, this one here was found by Roz, and this started the whole equation. It's called Roz's Rock 1. Can you spin around to the other side of it, please, as we go, please, Evan? Yeah. Okay, we'll show them a few of it. We'll get to that in a sec. You'll see there's angles on there. I'll talk about that in a sec. I'm only going to do a brief talk about these rocks right now. There's another side of the rock. Go again, please, Evan, because we're going through quickly today. We're not going to spend too much time. There's another side. You see another set of markings coming up. Next one, please, mate. Right. Now, that particular rock was found near Carrion, Gosford. Darkinong, what's the other tribal group there? Gurin? Something like Gurinji. I can't remember exactly. My apologies for that. It's sandstone country. Purely, absolutely nothing but sandstone country. You can pick this rock up, and by the way, the professor told me this, you could throw this rock on concrete and you wouldn't mark it. I've dropped it on concrete twice, and the first time I wouldn't look at it for a minute, and then I looked at it.
Uncle Johnny asked, is this the dad rock?
Yes, this is the dad rock. This is the boss rock. This is the rock that precedes all others. And not today, but when we do a proper presentation of this, in fact, we're going to do it in the first part, there's a dreaming story that Kano gave about this rock. And I can tell you, it's an amazing story about the fact that it is unique, not only in the way it's made and the way it looks, but the story that goes with it. And the story that goes with it is all about As on Top, the mob from up there coming here. But I'll tell you more about that on the day, not so much now. What you do need to understand is this particular rock. Can you see what's happened there? They've not chiseled, they've scratched those lines. Can you go back to the first side, mate? Go backwards if you could to the first one. And see the lines there? They've been scratched into it. They weren't chiseled in. And can you see the rock underneath? It is not the same rock that's on top. All of these rocks have been coated. They've melted silicon and grass resin together. And to melt silica, you need about 3,000 degrees Celsius. You can't find that in campfire. Placed it on top, let it firm, and then they've cut into it with a blade, or maybe even laser. I'm not sure, one or the other. But I can tell you one thing. It is not something you can chuck into a campfire and then pull it out and say, there, it's done. That is the rule here. And these rocks have a magic and an energy within them that is incredibly powerful. And I can tell you, my wife was painting this rock for Roz because she gave it to us. And the first time we saw it was with Michael Tellinger. And he said, my God, I've never seen a rock like this before. Well, she actually touched it for 1 second and screamed out in pain. And I can tell you, and I'll tell you more about that on the day, if it wasn't for the fact I was around, she would have died. And Evan, is it true or not true that people have touched rocks like this and died?
Yes.
It is true. And that's why when you go inside, you will be watched. Because there are always a couple of people that feel like, I'm special, I'm different. Blackfella rules don't apply to me, mate. You're living on Blackfella country. They apply to everybody. That's what this is about. So that particular rock, move along, please, Evan. That's one of the rocks that will be on display. Moving past them, please. Very quickly, I'm going to tell you one other story about them. There's quite a few you can tell. The angles. Dr. Derek Cunningham did an analysis of the angles on this particular rock. And I think you've got the other rocks here, haven't you, Evan? You've got the other rocks. Could you show them the other rocks? And you'll notice that some of those angles There's a rock that was found he did in Canada. And there are angles on there. And can you see the 21 angles there? Well, there are 21. And notice he goes to 2 decimal points there. 19 of the angles that are on that rock are on Ross's Rock 1. Could you move to the next one, please, Evan? The Bosnian Pyramid. Dr. Samir picked up a rock there that had lines. And there they are there. And he measured the lines on these rocks. It's on a couple of sides there. And there's the angles there. You can see them measured up. And of the 15 angles on there, see those angles there? Every one of them is on Ross's Rock 1. Now, he also did a rock in Germany, which we didn't put up because you just have to take my word for it, where there were 10 angles, and all 10 angles were also on Ross's Rock 1. So what we're telling you is the first language, the first written language, wasn't out of the mouth. It was mathematical. And do you know why it was mathematical? Because mathematics, 45 degrees is 45 degrees, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Germany, whether it's in Bosnia, or whether it's in Australia. It's a universal language. And if you think about it, when you read the Bible, you'll find that in the Bible, until the Tower of Babel, there was one language. Well, they didn't tell you what the language was. It was mathematics. You can't argue with the 18.6 degrees. It is 18.6. And these angles have a meaning. It's a story. And that's what makes this rock so unique. And as Uncle Donnie has pointed out, it is the male rock, the boss rock, because it actually has so many different stories about it. It's the beginning of something completely different. Okay, moving along, please, mate. Okay, yeah, well, okay, we've got an infill inside that rock, and I'll talk about that more. I didn't know it was an infill. The geologist pointed it out and was stunned by it. I said, well, so what? He said, mate, that's a different grain that's been put inside there and stuck in there, and it's been in there for at least 10,000 years. By the way, this rock was found 1.5 meters beneath the surface of Carrion, which is on the top of a hill. And it would take at least 10, 20,000 years for that to happen. And he said, that's been in there for 10,000 years and it's still there today. What glue have we got that can do that? And the answer is we don't have one. As I said before, these rocks break all rules. Moving along, we'll skip that. Oh, thank you, Evan. That's Evan's form of, this is his comedy relief there. Yes, by the way, that's a true picture of the Smithsonian Institute.
Well, no, it's actually from, the end scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's all right.
Yeah, it's from there.
Oh, it's based on the Smithsonian.
They put it in the basement at the end of Raiders, the Ark of the Covenant.
That's right. It was supposed to be the Smithsonian, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. It's the Smithsonian in a fictional form, but it's based on fact because that's what would have happened. And of course, that rock doesn't belong anywhere but Australia. And remember, the rocks do not want to be stored. They do not want to be put in a box. They've told me this. They want to be placed on the ground and they want people sitting inside the circle, which we'll be offering at Bundaberg. But again, if you can't come, you will get to see the story of this rock. It is in the presentation I'm doing. So those who are going to buy an online ticket, they still will get to hear about that rock, but not the others. You'll see some others now. Moving along, please, Evan. And here's number 2. And you'll notice the coat. These are the only 2 rocks that have multicolored coats, very similar to each other. In fact, there's number 1. There's number 2. That's the male one, number 1. Number 2 is the female one. That one has been held by 3 original women elders. They fall in love with that rock. And on 3 occasions, the rock said, put it in their hands. They were allowed to hold it, and they did. Let's look at number 2, please, Evan. Now, I want you to look very carefully at number 2. Evan's going to run his line upon there. Can you see what they did for that letter A, which is quite an interesting marking there? They actually cut all the way along there with a blade, ladies and gentlemen. And notice the rock underneath is a different color again, right? It's not the same color as on top. That blade is not a stick. It is not a stone. It is not a bone. It's a blade. It could be a blade. It could be laser. Uncle Jerry does talk about lasers a lot, doesn't he? And you'll notice it runs all the way along there, runs back there. It was all cut first, and then somehow or other they took the coat off. I don't know how, but they did it. There's some more technology that's coming up later that we can't do today. That particular rock is a woman's rock. If you can turn that around, please, Evan. You'll notice it's got the fine lines like the first one had, very hair-like lines that were cut into that rock. How do you do that? It's perfectly straight. The rock surface is not. Next one, please, mate. That's where that was held. The women held it there with their left hand. It's been worn out. Can you notice how my hand wraps around where it's held like that? That was just to show you how it's held. And it was held, it's been held for thousands, tens of thousands of years by women when they did ceremony. Next one, please, mate. And I think we've got on it, we've got come up to number 3 now. Number 3 is an interesting rock because it's a piece of media. And it's got 4 sides that are cut out and flattened. And all the lines are straight. Now, this is very important. Uncle Marbach spoke about this. These rocks that you're seeing at the moment are what is part of what he called, not me, he called the Star Rocks collection. And he told me for 50 years they've been looking for that. And again, like Kano, he encouraged me to keep collecting them because he knew what I was going to do. I sat down with him for one night, I think for about 5 hours, and it was late at night, wasn't it, Evan? Oh, you weren't there, were you? Don't you were there that time? It was from about 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and he held each rock and he told me stories about each one of them. I couldn't remember it. He was brilliant. He could read the rocks. And this one is again a story. It's a media, and all the lines on there, quite a few of them are quite straight, and then you've got other lines that are different. They've all been cut into it, and it's a different color. It's a chocolate color that's on top of this darker color. And on one occasion, some bits have been chipped away and you can see the darker color underneath. How do you cut a media and make flat surfaces out of it? 50% of it is flat and marked and 50% is unmarked. It's a story about the seeding of life on this planet. He told me about that, about when a spear was thrown from the Pleiades, he said, and it hit the earth and went in that sharp spear, and that's Uluru. And if you look at Uluru, there's about 5 kilometers underneath. It's like a sharp spear that runs down with the cap on top. It's a story about the beginning of life on this planet. This is all one huge experiment on this planet. Next one, please, mate. This one. Fascinating rock, this one. We know when Ross bought this off the collector's father, who grabbed this in the 1930s, and we don't know where. He was with Elkin and burnt. We're not sure where it took place. On each side are star maps, and you can see the rock underneath is a very creamy color, and on top you can see the coat I was talking about. But what's fascinating, could you point at that? I think you've got a picture of that coat coming up, that little lip on the side, haven't you, Evan? Oh, yeah. He identified that as Corona Borealis. The bit on the top there. We think it could be Corona Australis, but it doesn't matter which one it is, because I can tell you now, you can see it in the night sky if you've got a telescope. Well, according to everyone, there it is. There it is. That's a star map, a perfect star map. Now, how did they do that? And you can see the rock underneath is not the same thing as what's on top. It's been coated. But the most amazing part of the coating, I'm hoping you've got it coming up next, Evan. No, go back to 2, please. Yeah, as I said, it's that coat there. Yeah. Right, that little ditch there is where you put your thumb, because they're all holding rocks. You've got to hold them. You're going to do ceremony when you hold them. And what they did was they heated it, and it ran down the side and then solidified when it went down the side there, because the heat was basically marked on the top. It didn't go to the side like a candle. The bit on the top, it melts, then it runs down the side and then congeals. Well, that's what happened there, which meant when they heated this the second time, they managed to keep the heat solely onto that little section there. That's amazing technology. How can you localize heat like that? So it just dribbles down the side, and then you can put your thumb there. And then your thumb goes towards that Corona Australis or Borealis. We're not sure which. And on the other sides are star maps of the Pleiades, Orion, and Southern Cross.
Got them all in there.
They've got them all.
It's like the works burger.
As on top, so below. This is it. Look, the original people are obsessed with upstairs because the one dreaming story that goes through the whole of Australia to every tribe is the seven sisters, and guess where they come from? The Pleiades. And by the way, they weren't seven brothers, they were seven sisters. Who makes babies? Sisters do. And they didn't fly above the earth, they landed in Australia. And they left a few things behind. Some babies. Next one, please, mate. We've done that, we've done that. All right, here's the next rock. This is called Prickles Rock. We had it for a while and then it went back on country because there apparently was an elder in West Australia that actually knew the story. Well, when we found that out and we were told that, we said, right then, it goes back. But look at this one. Every line is perfectly straight and they've cut it time after time after time. Go back to the first one if you can. On the first side there, I tried to count the number of straight lines and it went over 100. But people will tell you that original art is never done with straight lines. This is pure geometry. Pure geometry. And by the way, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 main lines there. 7 lines. What does that relate to, Evan? 7 again. And notice on that side, you've got the 7 lines. Can we go to the other side, please? On the other side, we've got what I believe is a shield. It's a raised shield.
Okay, yeah. Well, Ari, yes, it does look like songline maps. Songline maps.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Oh, whoever said that? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. They are songline maps. I believe the one on the other side is a songline map. Oh, thank you, Evan. I don't know what happened then. And then on this side, because there's that shield and I've got that line going through the middle of it, which I think could be a spear, I believe that's Orion. And in the Seven Sisters story, 7 sisters are chased by Orion. Now, sometimes Orion is a spurned lover. Sometimes he's romantic. Sometimes he's a rapist. And sometimes he's a horrible human being. We're not sure with that because that one varies a lot. But the story about the 7 sisters doesn't vary much at all. There are 2 main sisters. And if we go back to the first slide again, could you please, Evan? In it, there are 2 main sisters. And look, the 2 main lines running down. Then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some are deeper. There's one that's quite very shallow, the fifth one there. They are the other sisters, and I believe the 2 main sisters represent the 2 main sisters, the 2 main cuts. And those cuts, what did they cut it with? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking geometry here. This is pure geometry of the highest order. Next one, please, Evan. We've got to finish it. We've got to hurry because we've got Trudy waiting outside. Oh, there it is being held. Okay, and you'll notice I've got the male side up at the moment. Oh, I think I've got one of those rings from Atlantis on me, haven't I? We're not talking about the ring from Atlantis. We'll be talking all about that at Bundaberg, but we're not doing that today. We've done that before. Next one, the shaped rock. Now, this is one of the 7 rocks, 10 or 8, 9 rocks. I know where it came from. In fact, I was on country with this particular, where this was, and the elder threw this rock at me and said, take that and show white fellas and black fellas some of what we did. Now, I can tell you that rock is rubbish. There are literally thousands of rocks at this place that have all been shaped in different ways. I picked up one rock that drips oil and we rubbed it. And the oil was coming out of the rock. Work that one out, ladies and gentlemen. I know the place, but I wouldn't take anyone there because if I did, they would probably start taking rocks away. That is just one of many rocks. And guess how many sides are on that rock? Give me a number, Evan.
7?
7 sides. 7 sides on that rock. Now look at that angle. Look at that sharp angle there. Look for the percussion points because rock on rock, it's percussion bulbs. You'll see them. There's nothing. There's no percussion bulb on any side of that. That top side up there, you could run that on your skin and you would bleed. That's how sharp it is. You would bleed. And of course, that rock got damaged when I broke protocol once, didn't it? And it flew out of the bag and hit the road. Had to stick a bit back on. That's when I broke protocol. When you break protocol with these rocks, they don't like it. Next one, please, mate. We're doing this very quickly. We're showing you some of the, this one. Now, I can tell you where this came from. I know. It comes from Almond Land, doesn't it, Evan?
Yes, it does.
Yes. And we had Uncle Trevor Wee here, didn't we?
Yeah.
He was a senior park ranger that works up at Kakadu National Park. And I said to him, Uncle Trevor, this rock comes from Almond Land. And yeah, I know, I can see it's got an amazing alien on there. Well, I think Hoppy call them the ant people. You can see the two eyes on that side. I said, but I know this comes from there. And it is possible that this was done with rock technology. I don't think it was, but it's possible. But because I knew it came from Almond Land, which is not Southern law, and all of the rocks we've picked up being given, come from Southern law country. Uncle Kano spoke about that, but I'm not going to talk about that today. I said, I will give it to you to take back. He said, no, wait. First up, he did ceremony with the rocks. He said, I'll take the pictures and show it to them. And he did. And they said, yes, we recognize it. Then they said two things. But it comes from way back, from a time where we know so little. We do not have its song. We do not have its ceremony. It is better staying with all the other rocks together, and together they can do so much more because we can't sing it. We don't know the song anymore. And after we offered to give it back, for those people who complain about that, they said, no, keep it. Now, that is a story about As on Top. There is no human being on the planet that looks like that. And the original people knew that at the time. It's got about 5 arms. You can't see them all. And it's got a line that goes around all of it. And on the back of it, they've stuck on a piece of rock that's been there for 10, 20,000 years again. They got a glue, guys, that, ladies and gentlemen, super glue doesn't even come close to. Next one, please, mate. Ah, yes, the Silcons. We do know they're going to do some work in a couple of months in Tasmania. They found a Silcon like that. And guess what happened, Evan?
Mm.
A cultural woman picked it up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. She got very sick. And they took it back and they put it back there. We're going to look at that site because we don't go on the site until the elders invite us. And we're going on the site in a couple of months down in Tasmania. I'm not telling you where because we don't give away location if it's sacred objects. And there's a site there that we know is very, very old. And I've already got proof, but I'm not going to talk about that now. Silcons are energy rocks. They sit inside your hand and they feed off your energy. And when they feed off your energy, what actually happens is the heartbeat goes into your hand. You can start to feel your heart pumping. Then it sucks up that heartbeat and you feel it throbbing inside the Silcon. And how do I know that? And look what Uncle Donnie said. Yeah, he's seen it too. He's seen these rocks are around. They are sacred rocks.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because the comments from my Facebook group aren't linking into the system, so I'm reading them as we go.
Oh, okay.
There are portholes to other realms. That's men's business, yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure. This one, we'll be bringing 2 Silcons. Actually, we're going to bring about 5. We've never brought that many before. We'll be bringing them.
We can show you what happens with dowsing rods with them.
Yeah, we'll do a trick with the dowsing rods. What we do is we blindfold somebody, and we'll be doing that on the day. We're going to blindfold a few people. Evan then steers them in a direction, and I hide somewhere, and I hold the 2 Silcons up. And when they get into the path, the Silcons will cross over. And when they walk past the path I'm aiming at, they uncross again to prove to people that they do have a power. Now, that one and the other one I do it with, I can't really do much with them. I can do those sort of party tricks, but I can't do more than that. There is one Silcon I'm bringing for the first time ever where it throbs in my hand and then that heartbeat goes inside the Silcon and gets so powerful, my hand reverberates with the pulsing that's taking place inside that rock.
Does it have a thumb?
Yes, there's a thumb. Yeah. That point up there, Uncle Donnie, see where it's been knocked away there? That's where your thumb rests because it's completely smooth. On the other one I've got, there's a little imprint for the left thumb to go into. So I know that's a right-hand Silcon. And the other one, which is a left-hand one, is a woman's one because left hand is for women, right hand is for men. About 95% of the rocks we have are right-hand grips. The number 2, the one I showed you earlier, is a left-hand grip. We have another silicone that was broken, unfortunately, and we stuck it back together with super glue. So super glue does have a use here. That is a left-hander. And yeah, that's where you've got to put it, because Uncle Donnie is right. All these rocks must have a grip, because they are not weapons. They are spiritual objects that help for ceremony. That's why we're doing ceremony with you. Next one, please, Evan.
Oh, we've just got a question coming in here.
Yeah. Oh, the grandmother tree at Carryong. The update is that. Yeah.
Well, I think they're hoping nothing happens to the next local elections, because at the moment the local council's run by an administrator.
Administrator has put up a proposal that all the land that's held by the Darking on, the sacred land is going to be rezoned so it can all be developed. That's the local, yes, with the grandmother tree, people have defaced it some more. They've done other things to it, but I've got to make the point that when they scribble and mark on the grandmother tree, 2 things happen. Number 1 is after a period of time, the marking disappears, and I can guarantee you the person who did that gets sick. We know that because the people who blew up, when they blew up part of that and they put detonation in there and actually exploded part of the actual rock platforms there where the glyphs are, one of the people there fell and cut an artery and had to be taken to the Royal North Shore Hospital via a helicopter and nearly died. There is punishment for people who do that. That wasn't an accident. That was done by the spirits there to stop them doing it. Okay, next one, please, Evan, because I think we've nearly got. There are the rocks in formation. That's what you'll be sitting inside. That's a very quick picture. We did a ceremony for that for a solstice quite recently. Anie Trudy is outside right now at the moment with those rocks, and they're on a table, and she's sitting around on 4 seats, and she's working with them now. And she'll be on in a sec anyway, because I think we've nearly finished. And I think we have finished. Have we, Evan? Is there any more?
Just check.
Just check. Okay.
No,
that's it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was a little taster of one of the things we'll be doing. We'll also be we'll be showing you skulls that are not from people from this planet. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I can tell you the Australian government knows about it, and I've got many letters about these skulls. Many threats. I've got a folder this thick about these particular objects, about the fact we can't take them out of the house, and about the fact we're not allowed to have them analysed or tested in any way. And believe it or not, I've been given formal instructions that that's what I'm allowed to do, and if I do any of those things, I go to jail. And I know that sounds bizarre, but I'm not lying, am I? You've seen them. You know what they've written. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do now is Evan is going to set this up, and we're going to introduce you to Anie Trudy. Yep. Now, Anie Trudy is one of the very few people, in fact, there are 4, that is allowed to touch the rocks. Okay, Evan's doing this as of today. He didn't know about that, and he'll be doing it later on today, and we're going to try and find out if I'm right. And if he dies, I know that I'm wrong.
Right, well,
I have told that. I've told that to each person.
So if you don't see me again, you know what's happened.
Yeah, well, that means it's his fault, because he should be ready by now, and the rocks believe he is, and if he's not, well, then that's his fault, not mine. Don't worry, I've got another son. I've got 2. So if I lose one, I've still got the other one.
Good luck.
Okay. All right, for that. Now, Anie Trudy. Wonderful lady. Really advanced spiritually. And Evan, could you go and get Anie Trudy, please? She's going to talk for 15 minutes, and she's going to give you a bit of a rundown of what she's going to talk about. We've got men's business, we've got women's business, and Anie Trudy is going to come in about now. Okay, I'll move the chair out of the road.
So welcome to.
You're on. Okay, she spent 15-20 minutes for the rocks. This is Anie Trudy. We'll step away. We'll stop you in 15 minutes, Anie Trudy. You tell them what the sort of stuff you're going to be talking about.
All right, as you know, Steve's already introduced me about Jingala. That means Alo in Bundalo. Naingari, Trudy Roberts. My name is Trudy Roberts. Maiga Banjalong Wijibo Waiabo Dangari Nyambo Barina. That means I would come from those clans, tribes. Well, there's so much to share. Like, where do I begin? Where do I start? Well, like Steve said about the women's business, that's a lot of my focus. That's since my near-death experience. That's really what I've been, I guess, going deep within our Dreamtime stories to really unlock and decode what they actually mean, the scientific meaning behind it. Yes, there's a lot of sacred geometry. Yes, there's a lot of astronomy. Yes, there's a lot of alchemy. And alchemy, yes, sacred geometry is really what I've been learning through these Dreamtime stories, what I've been locked in there. And about the 8 skin laws. So that's a bit of what I have for you in Bundaberg, and I'm hoping to see you all there. And we figure this out together and we ascend together. That's really what it's about, like coming to know thyself. Who you gotta ask yourself, who are we really? Are we what everybody tells us what we are? Or our genetic biological makeup tells us something different? My Dreamtime stories, our ancestors that left behind, you know, they talk about all these age and timelines and that, yeah, we went through all forgetting. And as I was getting into the language, like learning, because my role is a part of this journey too, is to revitalize the language among my people, which is very close and endangered to being quiet forever, but no, not anymore. But anyways, besides that, in that journey, what I've had the opportunity to, I would have never known, never learned and understood these things if I did not get in touch with my language. It's how important the language is. It's not just a way of communication. There's so much locked in that language, because the language that we speak is that old. It connects and reflects creation and nature and everything around it. So through that journey of language, I've been able to discover so many things before my near-death experience and all this stuff, mythology, and thinking about our Dreamtime stories and trying to fully understand what they mean, and which is absolutely hard, challenging, because we've lost a lot with the knowledge. So yeah, but what I learned to understand is that it's not really lost when we understand who we are and what is within our blood, how important our blood. You know, they kept saying to me about, after I had the near-death experience, Guman Gawarila, Guman Gawarila. That actually means your blood runs. So yeah, I spent quite a bit trying to understand genetics and to understand our Dreamtime stories. And a lot of it, yes, is woman's business, because she is the creator. The woman is law under the 8 skin law. She is actual law, woman. And a lot of it is about the matristic, the woman business, the old way. Yeah, we live in a patriarch world right now, controlled and ruled, but we are going back into a time, we are heading into a time where it's going to be matristic, where the feminine energy and masculine energy will be equal once again, not one above the other. That's what woman's business is really about, that feminine energy and having a place in existence and here in this time, in this realm, in third density, that's going to really help us get to the 5th. But that's portions of really what I've got to talk about among many other things. But like I said, we're all on this journey together to Binangwan. Binangwan in my language is to remember. We are coming out of the era of forgetting. Now it's time to Binangwan. Remember what was. because what was will help you for what is to come. So that's pretty much what I've got to share. And I'm looking forward to meeting many of you if you can make it a Bundaberg. And the main thing at the end of the day is, like I said, know thyself. Because once we discover who we are and what we are, we'll absolutely know what we can do. And believe me, it's unbelievable, the power we possess within each other. What we can do when we unite and change the world. We change the world overnight. If only you knew how much power we harness within us and that we can draw for. And this time, this change, this new thing we're heading into, like right now, we are carbon-based. Before, we were never carbon-based. You look at the 4 elements, earth, wind, fire, water. We're in a time right now, we were of earth and water, and Gung and Daganna. But now we're heading into fire and air. And a lot of my Dreamtime stories that I know, when you really think about it and you understand these stories, a lot of magic, the change, there was such a transformation with air and fire. A lot of things happened with those 2 elements in our Dreamtime stories. I started to recognize that in our Dreamtime stories. All these elements, what do they mean? And I was looking at them like, every time these elements were brought together, something magic happened. Something changed. Adaptation, using the elements. But that's pretty much what I've got to share, like I said, and I could talk all day. But Steve said I've only got 15 minutes, so I'm going to keep it to 15 minutes because today is actual 12 years anniversary for me and my husband. So yeah, we've got a big afternoon and night ahead. But like I said, I look forward to seeing you all in Bundaberg if you can make it. If not, see you at the next one, which I know there'll be many more to come because this knowledge has to be out. We all have to work together in order to figure this out. And it's no more about you, them, and me. It has to be us. We have to come back to unity. Because this Dreamtime story, I was thinking about the white cockatoo gear, which I share the Dreamtime stories. One major Dreamtime story with all the kids. Because I think this Dreamtime story about the birds, how they got their colours. Because I learned all the colours they were today, what you see. They were all one colour, but that's a story for another time. But this story I share with the kids because in this story there's so much that the children are learning from. There's law in it. There's way how to treat other people, how to live with other people, and about differences. That we all may look different. But in the beginning we were all one. And in the future we'll be all one again. And this is a story I share with the kids in the schools. And they actually love it. And they're writing a book about it at the moment, retelling it, and yeah. So this story is what I'm sharing with the kids about the birds. And I recognise in these stories, like everything in the stories I represent symbolically. The languages that are decoded within the timelines. There's so much layers within our Dreamtime stories that really need to be figured out by our people, by those ones that hold these stories from their clans, from their mobs, handed down from their bloodlines. They really have to start focusing a little bit more on that in life right now than, I'd say, more than most other things what we do. The time and energy we spend a day is not exactly how we should be. When you look at nature, she runs her program. Nothing interrupts her program. We've got to get back in touch with her. You look at her, you'll see the laws hidden within her, the laws our ancestors lived by, those 8 skin laws that were given. Well, I'm sure I'm past 15 minutes. Have I had Stephen Evan? But that's a lot of the stuff, but I'll be focusing more on about the women's business and the role we played and the role we will have now and in the future. So I look forward to sharing more with you in Bundaberg. I'm excited. Boogle Bear, thank you. Anie Bird. See ya. Steve, Evan.
I'm here. Look out, here's a
Let's
rabbit
go,
around here
let's
at the
go.
moment. Right.
Oh, and Steve, what you were sharing before about sacred geometry,
Mm.
there's those three stones that I was sitting out there, and they are sacred geometry written with on them. The numbers 7, 8, 9, the 8 skin law, 9. The number 9 significant, what it means, completion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 4.
Yeah.
The elements, everything. Like those two stones out there, I didn't notice it before until I was sitting with them out there, and there's sacred geometry written all over them in the cycle of life. And we are in the year of 8. And there's one there with strong symbols of 8 and the circle of life. So we've come back around to that 8. We are in the year of 8. And
that's why I put them on the
infinity
table this
and
time so you can get
spirituality.
close to them. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Trudy. Okay, look, I wanted to bring something in before we go further. This. It's a slab of granite. Now you might think, so what? Well, I'll show you what's written on there. I want you to have a look at that. Now that is a brilliant piece of artwork. But tell me something. Weighs 6.5 kilos. I'm not holding this for long. This is the first time this rock will actually be in ceremony anywhere. Now this piece of work on this side is a woman's story. And you can see the serpent on there, and there's a way you trace your finger around there to get in contact with that. But lo and behold, there's a woman's story on this side, but on the back is a men's story. Now, there are very few rocks anywhere that have a men's story and a woman's story together. And that's something really important we've got to start looking at. There's two parts to that, but an important part of this story is, how did they make this? What tools were used? And this one, for anyone that thinks maybe, maybe not, this is absolute proof, ladies and gentlemen, that what we're talking about is this is a story about original people that isn't in any textbook. It's not in any school, because I used to be a school teacher and I left the schools because of the fact I was getting this information, and I was involved in helping to write up the AB Studies course for New South Wales. I went to the review of it as it started to fall apart, and I told them straight out, content, and that includes a lot of the content I wrote before, as was going to be used in Sydney Uni as in a course there, was wrong, because I've been taken out by elders, particularly after Kano gave me ceremony, and they started showing me the truth. And there's a different story here. The first language on the planet comes from Australia. The whole thing is different. So, ladies and gentlemen, that rock, that is the first time it's leaving here to go and do a ceremony anywhere else before. And anyone who turns up on the day will have the opportunity, A, to sit inside the rocks, and then further on, if you come to that 2-hour thing at night. And I want you to think about one thing, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. It's 3 nights and 2 days. And during those 2 days, you've got lectures, you've got workshops, and you've got a market set up there. That's pretty deadly. And the cost is $250. I've been to other ones that go for 3 nights and 2 days. It can be anything from $900 to $1,500. We're about 1/6 that price. Some people still complain and say you're making money. No one's making any money out of this, I can tell you that now. That's not the purpose of this. It's to get out the truth. And you just heard, first of all, Smacker, who had shocking voice quality because he was working on a mobile phone out near the back of nowhere, basically. And then Trudy. There's 2 of the people who'll be speaking. There will be others. Now, next up, with a bit of help from Evan, we're going to bring in Leah. Now, Leah's also going to talk, because in the spirit of Wirrichin, what I wasn't going to do, and we could have just had all blackfellas talking. But then that wouldn't be Wirrichin, because Wirrichin says blackfella, whitefella dreaming. We have to have both. So we're going to have Paul Anthony Wallace, who spends a lot of time overseas and is known around the world, is probably the expert on the Old and New Testament and what it really means, and how aliens are part of that biblical story. And man, when he talks, He's got so much knowledge because he's an archdeacon of Canberra, and he was considered in the Anglican Church as the expert in Australia on the Old Testament. And he will tell you the Old Testament is all about gods from the skies coming down and guiding us. Completely different story that is so in tune with the seven sisters of the Pleiades. It's the same story. We're also going to have Mary Rodwell, who would be Australia's expert on UFOs. And we're also going to have Leah. And in a second, Evan, can you get Leah up on this machine for me, please?
Yeah, I'll just try to find her.
Oh, God. Okay. Right now, Evan's trying to find Leah, so I'll give her an introduction, and hopefully after the introduction, she'll be here. We ran into Leah about 12 years ago at a place called Rye, and she did a talk on aliens she was in contact with. And I remember thinking at the time, yeah, I've heard that before. And honestly, when people say they're in contact or channeling someone from the other side, until I met a lady called Valerie Barrows, I just didn't even take any notice of it. I just thought, oh, yeah, okay, so you're grunting a bit, then you growl and then you change your voice and you say you're talking on behalf of someone else. Where's the proof? So I didn't take any notice in that at all. I wasn't interested in it. But I got to talk to her because she gave a great presentation. She did some fantastic drawings. So I got to talk to her a bit and I thought, hang on for a sec. There's something genuine about this. And what's happened over a period of time, she's in contact with an alien called Mzere, who sits at the council. There's a council of elders that are basically taken in. There's two types of elders, of course. They're the ones who care and are concerned. And then you've got draconians and reptilians and others that aren't so benevolent, that have different motives and different intentions, that aren't so beneficial to people on this planet. Anyway, he basically sits at the head of the table. And I thought, oh, yeah, really? That's what she told me. Over a period of time, I've got to know Mzere through Leah, because Leah then basically, it's like a conversation. He just tells her stuff and she passes it on. And I remember one occasion, I thought, I'm going to find out a way to find out if this is really true. Because the stuff that Leah was saying through Mzere just couldn't come out of her mouth. It honestly couldn't. It couldn't have come out of mine. It was just a level above all our pay scales of anyone on this planet. And I don't care if it's Albert Einstein, Leah, myself, or Bruce. I just didn't feel like I was talking to a human being. The wisdom. But then what I did was I asked her a series of questions. I wrote them down. There were 10 of them. And I made it in an order where the last two, I hadn't told my wife the answer. They were things that only I knew and no one else knew. And he got 10 out of 10 right. And when he got the last one right, I just thought, no, I give up. I'm not going to fight this anymore. It's legitimate. This is actually, we're talking to a being that is completely, and you're about to set this up, are you?
She'll pop on soon.
Oh, good. Okay, this is normal. Right, I hope she does come very soon. She's talking about a being that is not from here. Now, I can tell you a little bit more about him. I found out, number one, he has one curse, one thing that he regrets about a being from this. He's incarnate as that being, I think about 1 million years ago, was that right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't die. And I know some people would think, hang on for a sec, what are you talking about? He never dies. No. I think 2 of them have actually created a form of self-suicide, haven't they?
Mm-hmm.
And they just went back into the collective unconscious, like Jung talks about. But the rest of them never die. And you might think, oh, wow, that would be fantastic. And a lot of humans would think that, but it's not. He wants to die. He would like to be part of the process we're in, where we come back and we come to a place where there's good and evil and we have to fight our way through and earn things and not know things and then discover them. It gives a purpose to life. He wakes up every day and says, just another day, doesn't he? And the day after is just another day. Now, what we have done is we've written 2 books about Mzere. And hopefully by the time I finish this, Leah will be here. The first one we wrote, we both put in a bit of a rave about Leah put in a rave about how it came about, and I put in one about how I stumbled upon Leah and then found out whether this was actually the case and got convinced it was. And then we put in, I think, 10 transcripts from 10. Well, we're going to do one of these in a sec after Leah's done this, where I write out somewhere between 10 to 15 questions, and then he gives an answer and we discuss it. And in the first book, which is Conversations with an Alien, what we've done is basically put that up. And what it is us explaining how it came about, then the questions, then his answers and our comments. Because the way it works is when we get the answers, I don't know what the answers to these 15 questions I'm going to ask are. And I'm coming in blind. Leah is not, because she knows what the answer is. Or we sort of discuss it a bit. And that book we have copies of, and if you want to buy one, you can contact us and we'll sign it and send it to you. Of course, if you're in America or overseas, don't get it off us, because it's going to cost us $100 to send you the book. Just get it off what? Who can they get the book from?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of those.
All those ones. Get it through them, because we can't send it to you. We personally sign the ones in Australia and New Zealand. We can do Australia and New Zealand. We can't do anyone else. What was her name? It's Anie Trudy Roberts. Okay. And if you actually want to see her speak and you're within Australia, come. If you're not, $50 and you can listen to her. And if you like that, we've got other ladies speaking and we've got other people speaking too. And of course, Smacker was doing it tough there because the sound wasn't great. He was going through a mobile phone and she's in the middle of Australia. And some of the words were you couldn't hear it properly because it was just the way the sound was picked up. We did that once with another elder, didn't we, Evan?
Yeah.
Out in the middle near Ayers Rock, Uluru.
I might do our end ads now too.
What?
Our end of conference ads right now, just to fill in some time.
Right. Yeah, so what I was going to suggest to you is, number one, for those people who think, oh, I can't believe that we'd be talking an alien like that, look at the first book and ask yourself, when you look at the answers to the questions, and half the time he answers me the question, and half the time he gives some sort of obscure answer that doesn't make sense and does about 5 years later. And sometimes I don't know what he's talking about, but it's way beyond me anyway. That first book is quite interesting. The second book, which is in the final stages of coming out, is completely different. In that, we've done about 38 conferences. We put in everything he said. And we haven't put in our commentary anymore. What we've done is we've put the transcripts in, all of them. We've put in the question and his answer, and that's all. Okay, that's all we've done. And then we did something completely different. And I'm glad I have got time, because I want to explain that before Leah comes on. And I'm hoping she comes soon. What we did was, on one occasion, I made a mistake. I gave Leah a set of questions I'd given her 2 months before, didn't I, Evan? And I didn't realise. And I sort of, when we're reading the questions out, halfway through it, I felt like, hang on, I'm sure I've heard that before. And I just dismissed it. And so we did it twice. But what became apparent is soon after, I think Leah picked up the fact we repeated ourselves. But then what we did was we compared the answer the first time to the second answer. And sometimes, in most occasions, it was like the next part of the answer was given in the second one. And sometimes he actually repeated exactly the start, the first sentence that he said before, then went off and did something completely different. Then we started to go through all of the stuff he's done. And we found that we could put it into about 10 categories, and they made a complete statement. When you put it all together, it's like with the transcript, you get a little bit of an answer. But if you go through all of it, you get the full answer. So what we did was we went through everything. We cut out everything he said and then put it into these categories, like one's Atlantis and Lemuria, obviously. Okay. Another one is just personal living advice, how to ascend after the change. We put them into categories, and then you can read. And what we suggest you do is, first of all, read the transcripts and get a feel for that. And then once you've done that, you're ready to do the whole thing. And that, by the way, that whole thing, that section is about 12,000 words of just him talking. Now that's deadly. That really is something completely different. That is probably a month away because it's all been written up. All the writing is done. And at the moment, Leah is in the process of putting in the pictures, because in the first one, she did diagrams of about, I think there was about 80 pages, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Of diagrams of different aliens she's seen and met. Because Leah's set situation is different to most. When she was on the other side, as we all go and spend most of our time on the other side, where it's much better than here, I can tell you, she didn't want to come back. He asked her to come back here again, and she didn't want to come. And she would only come on the agreement that he would be with her and guide her through coming here this time round. And her job is to introduce Mzere to all of us. And why? Why is he prepared to do this? What he's done is, people sometimes need guidance in a book, be it the Bhagavad Gita, be it the Bible, it doesn't matter. People want something like that. Well, he's giving it to you, but he's done it in a clever way. If he sat in a spaceship and landed the spaceship on the White House lawns and came out and then said all these things, everyone say, well, yeah, I believe it now. I don't have a choice. I'm being forced into it. But the way he's done it now, anyone can say that Leah and I made it up, maybe even helped us a bit. And we all concocted the whole thing in advance and we made it up. And you can say that. Thank you so much for thinking I've got an IQ of 450. I don't, by the way. But I appreciate the fact you think that we could actually think at that level and have that depth of understanding. But I can assure you, anyone that's read it, and you might have read the first book, you would have got a taste of it. You would have got an introduction to find out what's going on here. But when you get the next book, and that'll be coming out very soon, keep your eyes open for it, and we're going to put a full page ad in Nexus and New Dawn to let people know that it's coming out, right? And we'll put a few quotes of stuff he said. And you will then know, my God, this is not, and I use the word my God deliberately, this is not from someone on this planet. This is somebody that has an IQ of 450 and literally knows everything. The best way to put this is on the back of the first book. Have you got the first book here, Evan?
Look, I'll bring it up because I
wanted to see the back cover. Oh, I can vaguely remember
I've got it here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's the back cover. Yeah. Oh, no. Okay. No. Well, anyway, I'll tell you what. Okay, there's the cover. There's the picture of Mzere. He stands, Evan's seen him once. Basically was in this hut. In fact, he was here next to Anie Trudy, standing over, looking at Anie Trudy. And I've got to talk to her about that because she's got some messages to give to her. He was there and Evan saw him. I didn't. Okay. I'm not allowed to see him. But on the back cover, I wrote something like this. And would you get Leah and wake her up, please, mate? I can't fill forever. Okay. I wrote this. I said, if I gave you the opportunity to speak directly to God and ask any question you want, I said, only a fool would say no. I then said, what about if it was the next in line? What about if you could have a conversation with God's interlocutor? Oh, there it is there. And he will tell you everything. Would you be agreeable to have a conversation with such a person? Well, that's what we've done. In fact, there's Leah now. Thank heavens. Okay, Leah, I've been filling in for about 10 minutes for you to appear. She's now got herself into a state that she's quite comfortable with. Right, there she is. Now, first up, Leah, we've got two things we're going to do. We've had Anie Trudy that came on, and before that we had Smacker that came on. Mm-hmm. We've done a talk about the rocks. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do for the first 5 minutes, I'm going to walk away for a sec. would you give the people that are listening to this, and those who will be listening later on, and there'll be many more that listen later on, a very brief overview of what you'll be talking about for your session, like Trudy and Smacker did. So we'll do that first, and when you finish that, then we'll talk about the 13 questions I asked, and I'm going to hope that I get a better response than last time, because last time we had to call it off. So first of all, Leah, tell us about what you're going to talk about. Put it on as main.
Firstly, before anything else, I want to say I'm very sorry for my tardiness. A certain someone didn't tell me what time I was supposed to be up to do this. I thought it would be a healthy 11:30 a.m. No, we're not going to do that. We're gonna call you up while you're in the middle of a fantastic astral travel. No, I'm just kidding. It's all right. Now, frankly, it's my bad. I should have been up earlier, but you know, I don't know. Like astral travels are way more fun than being awake. Anyway, so with this particular conference that we're going to do, coming up in the next couple of weeks. The plan is I'm going to roughly be talking about aliens and past lives. It's pretty much all I ever talk about anyway. But to give you a bit more detail, the one individual that I would like to bring more to the surface, and for those who have been sort of following our work, or particularly my work in the last few years, Mzere, I'm going to be talking a bit more about him because I feel like he has been more and more involved with a lot of our work and just our lives in general. But obviously with these Q&As, we have a tremendous amount of information that we would like to put forth to the rest of the world. And there's quite a lot of information in these pages, and I think a lot that we're compiling into a book. We've already compiled into one book before, but the next book that we're putting together, I think, has quite a bit more depth that I think we have perhaps overlooked from the first one. And that is one of the more important elements that we would like to introduce to our audiences, to our circles, because it's clear to me, particularly, I mean all of us, but more and more clear to me that this is not the kind of information that comes through me from him is not coming from me. It's not something that is invented in the recess of my mind. It's just something that is the depth of data here, and the it's going to be a bit of a teaser here, but the non-chronological thinking in these pages, in these answers and phrases, this is not something that a human is capable of thinking. So I would like to talk a bit more about that in the upcoming, this is something we're going to be talking about in the book as well, that you will be able to physically take home with you, but also what I will be going into further detail actually in the event, in the conference itself. So I'll be updating my presentation slides for the first time in like 10 years with new images, and just to give a bit of a fresh pair of eyes where I would like to show people. I think this is because we haven't done I haven't particularly done a live event in a very long time, so in person I should say, in a very long time. So I want this to be a very impactful one. I want this to be a very detailed one, and I want this one to be a bit more specific than a lot of the old roundabout ones that I've been talking about thus far. So I would like to see you guys come on the day and listen to me talk and ramble and rant and make jokes, and you better laugh at all my jokes because I'm pretty funny. I just woke up. I'm done.
Done. It will be brilliant, I can assure you that, ladies and gentlemen, because Leah will be talking a lot about Mzere and also about her wonderful past life in Atlantis when the whole place blew up. That's always something that riveting in different
Oh,
ways. Okay, now what we're going to finish up with now, for those people who haven't done this before, we have a series of questions that I'm going to ask Mzere. Now, the presentation we put on last time had a somewhat biblical theme about it, and I had this really clever, I thought I had some really great questions to ask, and Mzere thought they were a load of garbage. So I've rewritten them again, and we're going to go through, for those people who haven't done this before, I ask a question, Leah gives an answer, and we'll try and get through them fairly quickly. I'm going to start with number 1. And it says here, and I'll read these out because this is what I sent Leah, and then she's got responses for me. There are 2 written versions of Jesus' life and actions. This was one of the questions he actually did answer. There weren't many, I can tell you. So I'm going to ask it again anyway. One is mentioned in the Bible, nearly everyone is familiar with, and another strand, referred to as Gnosticism, was hidden and often destroyed. Which account is closer to what actually happened during Jesus' ministry?
Well, truths are hidden, lies are displayed.
Oh, God, here we go again. By the way, in the answer before, he did say that Gnosticism, neither of them are completely right, but Gnosticism was slightly closer.
Yeah.
Did you say, what did he say truth is?
Truths are hidden, lies are displayed.
Ah, right. Okay. Well, that indirectly, and that backs up what I told you, ladies and gentlemen, before. If you took the answer I got the first time where he said, well, they both had problems, but Gnosticism was closer, then he explained now what the problems are. Yeah, the truth is hidden, lies are displayed. Gnosticism, a lot of Gnosticism is about inferences. You've got to try and work out what it's about. It's not stood in there. In fact, one of the reasons why Gnostic texts were kept out was because if it didn't mention the miracles that Jesus was involved in or was supposed to be involved in, they didn't want to put it in. The Gospel of Thomas is all about inferences where you've got to work out the answer. So I know what he's trying to say, but I didn't quite expect that answer. But knowing that was one of the ones he did answer. Right. Number 2 then. Okay, that one's pretty straightforward. Some of the other ones which are new, we might need to talk about a bit more. If they both contain mistakes or inconsistencies, what are they? Oh, I think we just got that. Okay.
Well, there's a bit more of a fuller answer with this one. Many,
good.
However, the greatest of these errors are the few events that had happened were not experienced by the supposed names in the books.
Ah, yes. Okay. Right. Now, I think what we need to explain there is, and I think the reason why we had to call off the last one was because he made that point, didn't he, Leah?
Yes. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. What he said was this: the events that are put in there, he's not arguing the point about that. He's arguing about the geography of where it's supposed to have come from. He's quite insistent that the first nation, the place where it all begins, is not the Middle East, it's Australia. Okay? And you've got to remember, when I first went down to see Kano, I was called down and he told me he would give a story about the fact the original people discovered the rest of the world and sailed around the world in a figure 8 and gave their wisdom, their teaching and their genes, which we talked about often. The important part of that is the teaching. And what Mzere made clear was that the geography of the Bible, they've taken events that occurred but didn't occur there. That's a fair call, isn't it, Leah?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, he he says the greatest of these errors are the few events that had happened were not experienced by the supposed names in the book. So I think the idea is he's not arguing that some of the events did actually occur,
No,
but
he's not.
they were not necessarily happening in the Middle East at the time. He's not denying that some of them did happen, but not all of them. So, and I think, yes, some of them had occurred over here, some of them had occurred even in other places, and places that either no longer exist anymore or just lost the history. So it's yeah.
It's a combination of Lemuria, Atlantis, Australia, and then on top of that, some of the Middle East. What they've managed to do is to put all of that into one location when it's a combination of events. And that's basically why we had to rewrite this, because I didn't know that. And he kept picking that up. Okay, let's move on from there. This one we sort of half-asked, and I've had to change that around a bit. In both Gnostic accounts of the Gospel of Thomas and Thomas the Contender, and there are two, we're going to talk about Thomas a bit here, Jesus makes constant reference to Thomas being his brother, and moreover, his twin brother. Is Thomas his brother, and does this extend into him being his twin brother?
He was blood of few and brother to many.
Oh, God. Yeah.
It makes sense. I know what he means.
Exactly. Right. Well, the answer is we did get this before. He was his brother. Okay. Yeah, we got that part. And this is actually a big issue for traditional Christianity, because it calls into question other things. And one that comes into mind immediately is the story about Jesus being of immaculate conception, being born on his own, and then while he was in the manger, 3 wise men met him. Well, actually, I've read stories where it was when he's 1 year old, by the way, in Christian accounts also. So even that's debatable. But if it's twins, this immaculate conception and one child, that all falls apart, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And again, by the way, we're not contesting Jesus' existence, and Mzere is not contesting that, is he? He doesn't contest that he was. No, we're not trying to have a go at Christianity, because we're not. And Mzere made it clear that Jesus is an enlightened soul, a highly enlightened soul, and he's made that clear often, hasn't he?
Yes,
we don't want to upset, because we know a lot of people that are watching this believe in the Bible, and by the way, we believe in Jesus, and I particularly believe in Mary when it comes to that, and we'll come up to that in a sec anyway. In fact, let's talk about that. This is an interesting one. And in Gnostic scriptures, particularly Pistis Sophia, it talks about the 19 disciples, okay? And it talks about 12 men and 7 women. But let's go back a step. And it's an important one, and Mzere did raise this before, because this number 12 has really massive long-term implications. So I do want to ask about that one. The notion of 12 disciples may have 2 levels to consider. First up, why is the number 12 so important?
It represents the aspects of a soul's nature, thereby representing the many faces of Akashi.
Yeah, that's really important, isn't it? In fact, the number 12, the 12 aspects, there are basically guardian spirits or guardian beings that look after each of these aspects separately, aren't there, Leah?
So, yeah.
I know that they spread over. I'm aware of that, and I know that they change around. But there are 12 houses of sorts.
Yeah, it's a very it's a very abstract way of proceed. Like, it's not wrong. I suppose in a way I look at it more as a dimensional thing. It's more of it's a dimensional aspect of the universe. Apologies for that. I live next to a main road. God, very loud sirens. So To put the point across, it is it's very, very difficult to pinpoint exactly, because we all exhibit all of those traits. It's not something,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
not something that one person embodies and that's it and so forth. It exists in all of us, and I think that is something that we have to contend with at some point in our existence, is realizing that that all goodness, there's no such thing as all goodness, there's no such thing as all evil. So that's a discussion for another time, but I'm very keen
Let's
on
not
it.
do the let's leave the evil one out of this today. We spent a bit of time on that for different
For
reasons.
now.
Okay, we'll leave that
For now.
alone. Okay. Okay, now here's the next one. Comes back to the Gnostic scripture of Pisces Sophia, which I'm quite taken by, and Evan reads it a fair bit too, don't we?
Yeah.
We think it's quite a good one, because there's sections in there that talk about the beginning of everything, and it really sounds so original. Oh, Evan's going to hold it up. Right, that one there. That, by the way, was the only Gnostic scripture that didn't end up in the jar, did it?
Yeah, no, it was independently.
They kept that alive separately. Every other one was destroyed. Somehow or other, Pisces Sophia was never destroyed. All the rest were destroyed and found in the jar. That one wasn't, and it's sort of interesting that it wasn't. Okay, in the Gnostic scripture, Pisces Sophia, it mentions 19 disciples, of which 7 were women, which, while traditional biblical accounts do concede that there were women, but refer to them as followers, which is a deliberately lesser term. Which account is closer to the truth? Were they disciples or were they just followers?
In truth, all were followers because they were students, but those few were considered less than their fellows.
Yeah, because none of them, well, when we come to this, there possibly are 2 people who are following. We'll get to that in a sec, won't we?
Yeah.
We're going to get to that, ladies and gentlemen, because it's very important you understand when we're talking about Jesus, we've actually left out probably the more important partner in that, but we'll get to that gradually. I don't want to give that away too early. We'll build up to that because I know that's coming. He made that very clear last time that I actually missed that one too, didn't I? I had them as partners, and that's not even quite correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. We recently had a highly respected Indian scholar. Do you remember his name?
Crap.
No, it's not crap.
No.
His name is not crap. I'd like to apologise to the Indian scholar. He's highly respected in India, and he actually went into great detail in describing a time when Jesus and Mary were in India, as was the case with Thomas very soon after the crucifixion. And people may not know this, but Thomas was in India around 50 AD. And he actually wrote scriptures, and they were put on palm leaves, weren't they, Evan?
Yes.
And they kept the palm leaves, and the Portuguese came and tried to destroy them because they knew that was there. And that's very important to understand. He went straight to India. Okay, very soon after the crucifixion. But were they there first, then moved to the Middle East, or was it more a matter of the same type of duet archetypes existing in different places at the same time? Now, I didn't ask that question before, and I'm going to be interested to hear that. Could it be that when he talked about Jesus and Mary, and he went into a lot of detail about Mary being really advanced, that was there? They might have had some revealers at the same time, and they could have been 2 different pairs, or is it the same pair? Which one is it? That's got to get an answer of 1 or 2. I should get a definitive answer here.
Surely.
Yep.
The very well thought out and fullest question you have ever given, and the only thing he bloody says is finally.
Finally. He compliments the question. He gives me a 1-word answer, which is finally. Which means when I say, were they first there, moved there to the Middle East, or were they more remember the same type of duet? The answer is finally.
Yep, you get it.
That's it.
That's it.
Right. Okay. And if people really think that we make these answers up, You've got to be joking. We don't make them up. This is not what so I don't get an answer. All right,
No,
except
you
the
got,
fact
you got an answer. It's correct.
I got a compliment, but I didn't get an answer to go with. All right, we'll leave that alone. Right, that's great. That didn't answer anything. Okay, clearly the content of the Gnostic scripture, Pastor Sophia, is very challenging to all mainstream versions, simply because when the resurrected Jesus invited his disciples to ask any question they wish, we're getting up to this now, close to 90%, in fact it's 88%, I went through and counted every question, of the questions asked came from Mary Magdalene. I wanted to bring Mary up halfway through this. Okay. In fact, in one section, she asked 26 questions in a row. Why is her role so dominant? Because remember, this is supposed to be in Pisces the last time that Jesus will appear in front of all the disciples, the 19 followers. And why is it Mary basically dominates the whole proceedings? What's going on there? Hopefully I'll get something clearer than finally.
The teacher must challenge the student.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we're getting closer to the answer, aren't we? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave it at that for now, because there's some other questions that'll give us a clearer idea of who the teacher is. Now, I've got to be honest, I thought there were two teachers there. But Mzere seems to be saying it's not quite like that. But anyway, we'll get to that in a sec. I like that answer. The teacher must challenge the student. Now, you might be thinking, most of us might be thinking the students are the disciples. But I've got a suspicion it's not quite like that. Okay, we'll go further down that line. Okay, probably my favourite Gnostic scripture is the Dialogue of the Saviour. Okay, now in the Dialogue of the Saviour, we get to this, what you've just said, I think, here. Mary makes a statement where it would seem she was revealing truths to Jesus he does not know. And by the way, if you go and read it, you'll find that in about 4 occasions, and there's one in particular. When declaring she wishes to take Jesus away from the disciples, who are Thomas and Matthew. Yeah, It was Thomas, Matthew, Mary, and Jesus. And what she says is this, okay. She wishes to take Jesus away from the disciples to instruct Jesus in the mystery of the truth. In the Gospel of Thomas, she asked Jesus, what are your followers like? Okay. In the Gospel of Philip, the disciples asked Jesus, why do you kiss Mary on the mouth often? And why do you love her more than us? We have Mary as the one he loves the most, revealing wisdom to Jesus he is lacking in and clearly separating herself from his disciples. This leads on to the crucial question in this partnership. Who is the principal revealer, Mary or Jesus?
There is an answer, but he's told me not to say this live.
I've not heard that one before.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what you can do is think about the questions I've asked and put your own answer in there. And I think we need to make a point here. No one is saying that either of these two are anything other than divinely inspired. Okay. But I want to share something with you that might give it a bit of context, which I didn't put in at the time. If you were to ask Uncle Donnie, Trudy, Smacker, which of the magic that men and women have, which is stronger, there will be a universal answer. They will tell you the same thing, that women's magic is stronger than men's magic. That is a constant in original society. I can tell you that the point of conception, when a baby becomes a baby inside the mother's stomach, is an equation that involves the mother, the soul of the incarnated, and the spirits. It does not involve the man. The man is not part of conception. The man supplies an endless supply of sperm, but it is taken and used by those three spirits. I have seen the only ceremony, I've lost the film, but I've seen it once, of the first time a man was to see his daughter. He didn't see his daughter for a week. And when he came in, all the women were sitting around and the man was laying in the ground, and the grandmother came in with the mother, and the grandmother held the child, gave it to the mother. They walked around the husband 3 times and they placed the child on the man's chest, and he held it for 1 minute. The baby was taken away, and that's the last time he saw him for a bit longer again. Women's magic is stronger. So we are not saying, and I know what the answer is. Okay, I know what and I'll ask you when we finish, Leah, of course. I know what the answer is already, but I am saying this, that when Mary said, "To the cosmic we will be transparent," that's when he said, "I want to talk to Jesus about the mystery of the truth." And they actually went away. And I can tell you that Matthew and Thomas, when they were gone, they started to talk about what clothes they'll wear next. They were talking about trivial stuff. And when they came back further on, I think one stage, I think Thomas asked Mary, "Could you tell us what you spoke about?" And Mary said, "If I said what we spoke about, fire would come out of my mouth and consume the earth."
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you another indication of the power of Mary. So we'll leave that one with, I nearly backed him into an answer, but he wouldn't give it to me. But I think you can read between the lines. What we're saying is this duet. And remember, it was Krishna and Vishnu. It was a male and a female in the Hindu scriptures. Okay. It was 2 that were revealers, and it's the same here. And if you were to ask original people who is the more powerful revealer, who's the more powerful magician, they would tell you the woman. We know this, you've heard this yourself, haven't you, Evan? Who do original men fear the most? Which spirit?
The dragon.
Durangan. They fear the Durangan more than the male spirit. Why? His magic, her magic's more powerful. And there's a beautiful story, a dreaming story about the sisters, the sisters who had the first magic, and when the male stole the magic off and stole her dilly bag, the other said, "You're going to kill your brother because he broke the law." And she said, no, he can have the dilly bag. She said, "You can have that magic, but remember one thing, only women can create life. Our magic is more powerful." So the original people understand that. So we're not trying to offend anyone. We're just trying to clarify things. Okay, number 8. No, number 9. Number 8 was a bit controversial, wasn't it? Number 9. During the compilation of the Bible, all Gnostic texts and scriptures were deemed unworthy. Thomas was rejected primarily because no mention of miracles was made. It is 114 sayings or responses to questions made by Jesus. Why was it the mention of miracles was chosen to be the hallmark of what was included in chronicling Jesus' life and ministry in the Bible? Why was that the thing that they decided? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that is true. That's what happened that Constantine did when he got in the 20 bishops, and they did this in about 322 BC. If there was no mention of miracles, they would not include it. And most Gnostic scriptures don't talk about miracles. Why was it they wanted miracles in there, Leah?
Do not be wary of worshipping any idols. Be wary of the idol makers.
Wow. That's a very good question. That's a very good answer. Yeah. I don't think we need to add anything to that. Yeah, that sums it up particularly well. Okay, the next one. The same supernatural topic of miracles equally dominant in the Old Testament. Right? There's lots of miracles there. It even starts with people being made out of the ground, and then it goes to somebody walking around the walls of Jericho and yelling at it and all fell over. There's plenty of that sort of stuff in there. But Is this mystical obsession due to early events from the local area, or was it in part a very ancient dreaming narrative that originated in Australia? So now we're getting specific here.
Okay. All things are conceived in the dream.
Right. Well, the dreaming started in Australia. I'll fill that in myself then. Remember, the original religion is called the dreaming. Okay, and then people think it's what when you no, it's not when you have a dream and you believe that you won the lottery. That's not the dreaming. Mind you, it would be quite handy for some of us, wouldn't it, Leah? I know that you and Evan often buy Powerball, and how's that dream going at the moment?
I don't. I just talk about it.
Oh, right, Evan.
I occasionally buy one.
And how'd that dreaming go?
It's not worked.
Then we've got to be specific about the term the dreaming. But remember, the term the dreaming comes from Australia. Okay, and when Mzere said everything was found in a dream, okay, I'll take that. I'll take that as a semi-answer. I'm not getting a lot specific today, am I?
No.
This is not much better than last time because at least he's answering them, but I'm not getting the answer I want. Okay, the number one. In both the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is a Gospel of Mary. There's an interesting concept in both of them. Peter is clearly, and I'm sorry if people are going to get slightly upset by this, but this is the case. I'm just passing on. Don't shoot the messenger here. Okay. Peter is clearly openly antagonistic towards Mary, insisting, inverted commas, that all women are unworthy of breath, and also called her a liar. Is this merely a reflection of the rampant misogyny that was part of the time, or does this animosity run deeper?
Forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Oh, so you're going to do a Bible quote. All right, okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Because really, look, I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you have read the the Gnostic Gospels and Scriptures, you will find that Peter constantly makes an issue. Even in Pistis wants to know, why does she get to talk all the time? And Jesus said, well, what have you got to say?
Nothing.
Peter had nothing to say. It is there, but I do want to make the point that what Peter is doing, I think, is only a reflection of what 95% of the men of the time would have done. Okay, yeah. I think it's really important, and I'm not dismissing Peter's wisdom and other things he said, because he did say some quite intelligent things. There is a Gnostic gospel of Peter, by the way, 2 of them that never got in. So I want to make that point. He did get into the Gnostic scriptures, and he did make comments that were very Gnostic that they didn't put in the Bible. So I wanted to make that clear. That's why I gave him an out by saying, is this merely a part of the times? And I think that's what Mzere was actually saying.
Yeah, I think you've got when you're asking the question like of which of these categories are they, he didn't even bother, like he didn't correct you, because if he doesn't correct you, that means you're correct.
Yeah.
And he supplemented the point of like he's an idiot.
Yeah, and Donnie's got it right. I think Peter and some, by the way, there were other men in the Gospel of Mary. They split up, right? And some follow Peter and Andrew, and some go with Matthew, because Matthew was like Thomas. They were, yeah. In fact, Matthew sprung to her defense and said, "How dare do you speak to the woman?" He called her the woman like that, and put her in it. And she said, he put her above all of us. Well, how could you speak to her like that? And he stormed off. He walked out then, and others followed him. And that's when they split up into 2 groups.
Is this when Peter stormed off? Sorry, this is when
Matthew stormed off because he was so outraged that because Peter started by saying, "Please, Mary, tell us the things that Jesus told you that never told us." That's how he started saying this. And in the end, he said, "Well, why would Jesus say that to you?" And Matthew said, for God's sake, you started by saying, tell it. And she tells you this, and then you say that. And I think it's really important. I'm only talking about Peter is symbolic of what 95% of the men in those times thought of women. Okay?
Yeah.
They were lesser people, and he felt threatened by the fact that she was given so much wisdom and so much knowledge. And he let in the Gnostic scriptures, time after time, he says, you know more than us, and then he gets the shits about it. And he can't calm it down. So I want to make the point, we're trying to highlight what split the Gnostic scriptures from the other scriptures. It wasn't Peter as such. Now, if Peter walked off on his own, then it was Peter. But he didn't walk off on his own. But about 2/3 went with him and 1/3 went the other way. So it's not just Peter. Peter is a spokesperson for what other disciples were thinking also within that group. So I do want to make that point. But having said that, he did say some horrible things about women. And I kept thinking, Peter, do you realize it was a woman who's unworthy of life, unworthy of breath, who gave birth to you? Would you please think about your mother? She did give birth to you. You wouldn't be there if it wasn't for her. And that applies to the other 95% of the women and men at the time too. So we'll make that clear. Okay. We'll leave that alone. We've done enough Peter bashing now.
Yeah.
Now, this is an important one. It's a simple one. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's his name.
Yes, I've spent the whole time looking.
Okay. Oh, we found the name of this guy. His name is Kiara Winrider. Okay. And he is regarded in India as one of the main scholars that knows so much about India, its religion, and Jesus and Mary. And we're not sure whether that's an archetype or actually the same person. Now, speaking of Mary and Jesus, a very important question, and I am hoping and praying I'm going to get a fairly clear answer here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I am. 6-word sentence, yes, which is rare for me. Did Mary and Jesus have children? For God's sake. Oh, that's good. Many. Well, yeah. If you look at it, yeah, Mary had a bucket load of kids. She did. She had kids called Mary.
Nothing confusing.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, her sister's name is Mary Salome, right? And yeah, she had kids called Mary. James the Just was one of her other kids, wasn't it? Thomas is another one. Many children. Okay. And of course, the idea of a virgin birth gets pretty tricky amongst all that, doesn't it? But anyway, many is a good answer, and we'll take that one. Right. Oh, right. We've got one to go. Okay. The 3 Marys. That's Magdalene, Mother Mary, and her sister Mary Salome were the ones who first saw that the crypt Jesus was interred within was open, and the stone boulder that acted as a door had been rolled away. Okay? That's in the Gnostic scriptures, and it's in the biblical scriptures that we know about that our friend Paul Anthony Wallace will be talking about. And remember, he's going to read it to you in a way that is so Gnostic because it's still there. Don't forget the Gospel of John said the kingdom of heaven is within. So it's still there. It's in all of it. It's just that there are other things that got involved in this. Okay, we've got these 3 women and they're at the crypt. Okay, and they've gone there. And by the way, I want to make a point about the men. They weren't at the crypt. And oh God, and the cat's here. And the men did not go to the crucifixion. It was only the Marys that went there again. So we need to understand that about the disciples who came when the petrol hit the fire. The women did. But there's an interesting part of this I want to talk about. And I sort of know the answer because Mzere gave it to us last time. What is worthy of reflection is that it states that they met Jesus in his resurrected form, but they thought this ascended being was the gardener. Now, I always had an issue with this, and I don't anymore because I know what he said here. Okay. If Mary was his wife, along with his mother and auntie in attendance. Now, let's think about the three women we're talking about. One gave birth to Jesus. One made kids with Jesus. And the third one, Mary Salome, according to some stuff my wife has read, was Jesus's basically wet nurse mother for quite some time and looked after her constantly when he was a kid. We're talking about the three women that know Jesus the most, and they all think he's a gardener. So I think, okay, if Mary Magdalene was his wife, along with his mother and auntie in attendance, surely they would have immediately recognized him as Jesus, my husband, my nephew, and my son. That being an undeniable truth, why did they use the term gardener? Does it have a much deeper meaning?
No matter how far apart in age or in distance, all our children refer to us as gardeners. They have never been closer to understanding the truth about us.
Right. And that was, in other words, it wasn't the fact that they all had really poor eyesight. They'd gone the other way. This was actually, they could see through the physical image to what he really was, the gardener. And what was he doing? He was throwing seeds into the garden, wasn't he? To see if they would fruit and germinate. And the original people call that seed dreaming. What they say that is where you take a seed, wisdom, and you throw it out. And in fact, this is in the Bible too. They talk about this in the Bible with a mustard seed, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's a big thing, the mustard seed. They throw the mustard seed out. Sometimes it germinates. Sometimes it lands on rocks and nothing happens. They throw it out. And these three women had seen Jesus for what he was, the gardener. And that was a statement of not short-sightedness, but absolute wisdom. Right. Okay, so is there anything else you want to add to what he said about this, apart from the fact that, oh yes, because when we finish, I'm going to ask you about question 8. That's right. Yeah, we'll ask that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to add to any of to the last question or to any of the questions, I would say, don't like the answers given. Well, there was more details to all the answers he provided that I understood a little bit more. Like, they're not two-dimensional in the sense of, like, yeah, they make sense and they are and they apply to the questions, but it's like when you think about it, it's like, okay, there's more meanings behind it. And there was this one part I kind of wanted to go back into. It's the word finally in question 6, but we'll talk a bit more about that in the conclusion of today. But I think, Steve, if you ask that question one more time in a slightly different way, he'll give you a bit more of a fuller answer with that one.
Oh, right.
Because I don't know if audience knows this, but there's been a few occasions where we would ask the same question, or at least Steve would ask the same question in a slightly different way, just wording it a bit differently, just with a little bit differently. And look, the answer is roughly the same. Overall, the intent is the same. The spirit of it, I should say. But it's far more detailed. It goes from like one word answers to a paragraph, a very, very clear paragraph. So it's I don't know. It's just, I think like when he said finally, you were correct. You were going on the right path. He confirmed it, but you didn't finish it yet. So you have to finish that question a little bit more.
We'll mark it out.
Yeah, mark it out. Just push it a little bit further, and then he'll be like, okay, you got it. All right, here's what you're looking for, basically. So
good one. Okay, we'll mark it out. And I'll answer a question that Perry's asked, which I'm putting up now. And what are the pages missing from the Gospel of Mary? Well, it's a very good point, because the Gospel of Mary, we've got the quotes, we've got the actual stuff that came out of the jar, and there's 6 pages there, and there were 20, I think there was 28. What actually happened was this. It starts with Peter asking Mary, what did he tell you? And then she starts to answer it and says, I had a vision, and the vision is, and guess what? That's it. And for the next 20 pages, it's been destroyed. And at the very finish of those 20 pages, it comes back with her giving the final summation of that vision. Unfortunately, because 20 pages are missing, we're not really sure what the vision was. And that was deliberately done. And of course, then Peter then says, well, why didn't he tell us this? And started by saying that he didn't tell us this. Could you please tell us what he told them? And basically, we don't know, unfortunately, Perry, what that vision was. And you've got to remember, in those times, Moses had visions. And you can go to the Muslim text, the Jewish text, and the Christian text, and Moses is held in the highest regards, and they never question anything he said. They're all visions. I mean, he went and spoke to a burning bush, for God's sake. You try and have a conversation with a bush that's alight and see what you get out of it. And he said, told me this. It was a vision. And he'd often be somewhere and have a vision and hear a voice. And other people would say, I can't hear a thing. And no one questioned it. So basically, the answer is nobody knows what she said. We have to guess. But if you go to the dialogue of the Saviour, you'll get an idea. The dialogue of the Saviour is basically her making statements. Like one question she asked Jesus, have we come to this planet and this incarnation to profit or forfeit? And you know what Jesus' answer is? You make clear the wisdom of the revealer. Didn't answer it, just said brilliant comment. It was a question, but it was an answer at the same time. So if you look at, say, the dialogue of the Saviour, you'll get an idea what she's talking about. You'll get an idea that this woman is incredibly advanced and at no less than the equal of Jesus. No less. And quite probably because she's a woman and has women's magic, slightly above. And I've got a suspicion that's what Mzere may be talking about, but I'll confirm once we finish that up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got
another question here.
Oh, have we? Oh, Perry, how is the second Slater book coming along, please? Good and bad news with that. The good news is I've finished it, I've written it up, and I've got it on a folder, and the folder's sitting in there at the moment. But the other book, we spent a lot of time on the other book, and then we spent a fair bit of time recently working on trying to get this really important conference up, and we spent a lot of time trying to get through different issues that have come up with that. And because of that, and also I've spent a lot of time recently putting the book together on Kano with a Ramanjeri. And at the moment, I've been spending all my spare time getting that up, and I'm about 2 days from getting that complete. And I owe it to the Ramanjeri to put that in front. I would have been doing the Slater book, but we got caught because Uncle Colin Wallago is one of the elders there. He did 2 one-hour conversations, didn't he, Evan?
Yep.
And we then got it transcribed. Oh, and it came out appalling. Honestly, the Ramanjeri became Tom and Jerry. Every word came out differently. I mean, it does me really badly and does Leah okay. And it does blackfellas who speak an Aboriginal language. It does them pathetic. You just don't know what it is. And I've spent about 3 weeks going through that transcript, trying to turn it into English that we can understand. So it's done. It's ready. It's a bit like the book that we're doing with Mzere. All of that's written, but Leah's got to do some diagrams for that. Not that I'm putting pressure on Leah right now in front of everyone else. I'm not doing that at the moment. But We want those diagrams and those drawings like before because they add so much to it. And she's in the final stages of doing that, and she's had a few things that have turned up recently that have also distracted her, and that's to be expected. The same way those other two things have held me up. But what I can tell you, Perry, that I'm probably 3 days from finishing Uncle Colin's transcription. Oh God, that it nearly gives me a headache, and I've never had one, but I nearly got one from that. And once I've done that, we will get on to Slater's book, and in particular, we're going to get on to the major part of it, the language. You will get a full transcription of the first language ever spoken. It is in the second book. I have it. You'll be getting all the sacred words. We're giving the whole thing up. And by God, we're going to get into trouble for that, aren't we, Evan?
Yep.
Yep, we certainly are. But it's not far away. That's the first book. And in it, it gives you a setting for it. Okay. And in it, I mentioned that even in the Bible, they talked about the one shared language. Well, we know it begins in Australia. Mzere will agree to that and said that. And it went around the world. And that language needs to come back. And because it went around the world, we made a decision. It may have come from Australia, but it belongs to the whole planet. That being the case, what right have I got or anyone got to stop it coming back out again? Slater devoted his whole life to transcribing that language, and we've got it written down, and we're going to give it up. And yes, some original people are going to say it belongs to us alone. Well, if it belongs to us alone, why did you give it to them? That's my answer in return. You gave it to them. In the Bible, it said there was one language. And during that time, everything was great. Everything was perfect because we understood each other. We could say what we think and we knew it. Well, it's gone now. Well, it's coming back. But I will make a point. When you use that language, and we're going to encourage people to use it, you use it in the right conditions, in the right place, at the right time, not at a party, not at a football match. It's got to be done with respect and reverence. It was a sacred language used in ceremony. You would use it in ceremony. And we'll make that clear in the book. And yes, it is coming out as soon as I finish the last section of the book on Kano. We were trying to get it out in time for Bundaberg. I don't think we're going to make it. I think it'll be ready before Bundaberg, but then we've got to get Erica to put it into book form, and then it's got to be published. We're going to just miss out on it, but people can make pre-orders for it. So, ladies and gentlemen, on that, I think we'll finish up for today. We've finished up. It's about 3-hour talk today, 2.5. Yeah, it was going to be shorter because it's all about one thing, and I want to close with this. First time this has ever been done in Australia, and I'm not even sure about other places. Maybe in other places they've done something similar, but in Australia, which is the beginning place of everything, this is the first time it's ever been done like this. If you can't come, and I get a lot of you can't come, you still can come to the talks. $50 for one day, $50 for the second day, and for you mob that live anywhere but Australia, divide that, cut it down by a fair bit. I think in England, it's basically £25.
Yep.
It's half. In America, it's about $30. And probably in Uzbekistan, it could be $2. Who knows? Because our currency is worth crap all over the world. So if you're outside Australia, you'll get to see all of this really cheap. And I swear to you, just get one day. And when you see the first day, you'll want to see the second day. We've got fantastic speakers, and it's a story. The whole thing will make a complete story, and you'll come out of that story being more aware of what this awakening is and your role in it. And I'm going to make the point, if you do this and you think it's brilliant and you think it's worthwhile, go around and tell your friends, I've seen something you need to get, and don't lend it out to them. Get them to buy it so they honor it. And secondly, once they honor it and see it, they'll want to see it again and again. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're involved in something that is really important, I believe, to everything that's happened before. It is about the ceremony that took place at Uluru. It's about what happened there. And when we start, we're going to spend half an hour proving to you with empirical evidence. All we're going to do in our 2 talks is give you evidence of rings that come from Atlantis, that come from Lemuria, of skulls that come from up there, of events that took place at Uluru with film and photographs that prove it actually happened, of rocks that changed the story of this planet. We will be giving you empirical evidence at the start and in the finish. We're going to start it and we're going to finish it. And in between, all the other people are going to tell you their stories. And every time your empirical mind says, where's the proof? We're going to give it to you. We're going to shut up that conditioned mind that was cultured and made to grow to become manifestly huge at school, and all the spiritual and magic was destroyed. We give you all the empirical stuff. The spiritual and magic stuff the other mob will give. And when you put it together, it makes a complete story. And that's why we start and finish it. So we calm down that conditioned mind that's trained to think that can't be true. It is all true. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the truth we want to talk about. If it works well there, I'm going to try and convince, and I know Wayne's watching right now, to try and do it somewhere else in another state and try and do the same sort of story. But it all depends on how this works. So we're relying on you people to spread this to others, to tell them, if you can't go to Bundaberg, and yeah, it would be best to go if you could in Australia, because you get to do the ceremony, you get to do all the other things. But if you can't, you can still watch everything that was said by all our speakers, and they're very good at what they do. So for now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being there, and all the rest of you come later, and you will.
Yes, there is a streaming event. You'll see when you go get tickets, there'll be online tickets.
You can buy the tickets now. It will be streamed. They will be based in the main hall where all the speakers are. Okay, you'll see all of that. So that's easy to do. And I know that a lot of people that watch this are in America and in Europe. And for you, I'm talking to you particularly. You won't be able to come to this event at Bundaberg, but maybe the next one, if you want to come to Australia and you know when it's on, you might come and do the whole thing, and you can do the rock ceremony and do the workshops that we can't film, all of that. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, we say goodbye until next time, and stay there, Leah, because I want to find out the answer to question 6.
All right, everyone. See you all soon. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.